Her sister was her lifeline in a total nightmare, and she was ready to give up everything for her until the very end. Sitting on death row, Sienna caught the smug look on Lorena's face. That's when the truth hit her like a truck. The girl who played the loving saint actually despised her guts, all because Sienna was born with zero magic. As the useless adopted trash, she was invisible at home. Her foster dad, the Grand Duke of Noct, treated her like dirt, and her brothers wished she'd just vanish. While everyone loathed Sienna, Lorena was the golden child, adored by the world. Lorena acted like she cared, but Sienna was too naive to see she was just a pawn in her sister's twisted game. The plan used Sienna as a scapegoat for every single screw-up. That toxic setup was exactly why Sienna ended up rotting in that cell. Seeing through the fake act, she chugged a vial of poison to escape the pain. But Lorena wasn't having it. She didn't want a quick death. She wanted Sienna to suffer slowly. Locked outside the bars, Lorena could only scream in frustration as her toy broke itself. Sienna squeezed her eyes shut, ready to end a miserable existence that nobody ever loved. But when her eyes snapped open, she wasn't dead. She had time-traveled back to the days before the Grand Duke adopted her. She was back at the Kendall orphanage. Today was the exact day the Grand Duke of Noct was coming to shop for new kids. Every orphan was lined up. Kendall wasn't just any shelter, it was a breeding ground for future mages. Since the dawn of the Empire, humanity had been locked in an endless war against magic beasts, so wielding magic wasn't just a cool trick. It was the only ticket to getting picked by a noble family. Here's the tea. Sienna and Lorena weren't actually blood-related sisters. Both got adopted by the legendary Noct family, but while Sienna had zero magical talent, Lorena was a total prodigy. The contrast was brutal. Sienna was the worthless burden, while her sister was the star of the show. After living through that hell once, she refused to make the same mistake. In her past life, she tripped in front of the Duke and caught his eye. That clumsiness got her adopted. This time, she needed to lay low. Lost in thought, she didn't notice the Grand Duke of Noct had already arrived. Black hair, crimson eyes, and a face made of stone. That was Frederick. The kids straightened up in a row, desperate to impress him. Everyone was praying for a lucky break except Sienna, who was sweating bullets. She silently begged the universe to let him walk past her. As his boots crunched closer, her heart hammered against her ribs, like it was gonna explode. But then Frederick stopped dead in his tracks. He dropped to one knee, right in front of her, and his voice was shockingly gentle. "Do you want to come home with me?" Sienna froze, completely stunned. He stayed there, kneeling and waiting. She only snapped out of it when someone nudged her. She quickly bowed, trying to be polite, but his vibe was weird. Something was definitely different this time around, but she'd rather die than go back to that house of horrors. Before she could say no, the room spun and she collapsed. Frederick looked genuinely panicked and reached out, but her trauma kicked in. She flinched away before blacking out completely, hitting the floor as her vision blurred. She caught his expression. Was he actually worried about her? How is that even possible? Why would he care? In an empire constantly at war with beasts, mages were the ultimate weapon. Nobles were obsessed with adopting commoners who had high magical potential to boost their military power, and they'd even force marriages between their biological kids and adoptees just to breed stronger mages. As the adoptive father of Sienna and Lorena, Frederick wasn't just any noble. He was the head of House Noct, a family that stood above everyone else, and the commander of an army of thousands of mages. Suddenly, a memory of meeting Lorena flashed through Sienna's mind. Back then, Sienna was just a shy, timid little kid, bowing nervously. But Lorena was all sunshine and energy, grabbing her hand. "I'm Lorena. I've always wanted a little sister." That blindingly bright smile totally disarmed Sienna. From that day on, they were inseparable. Lorena came over to play, constantly acting like a real sister. Unlike Sienna, who had nobody, Lorena had parents who treated her like royalty. That warm, fuzzy family vibe gave Sienna a taste of happiness she'd never known. Until the night Lorena showed up with a mysterious magic book wanting to run an experiment. The book gave off seriously creepy vibes, and Sienna wanted to say no. But one look at Lorena's puppy dog eyes broke her resolve. She agreed. Lorena grinned and said, "I just want to share some of my magic with you." She knew her mana tank was completely empty, which totally threw her off because she assumed the Grand Duke already knew the score before adopting her. Then Lorena swooped in with the fake sympathy. "I'm overflowing with power. I can just share some with you." Sienna shut that down immediately. That felt like straight-up scamming the Duke. "So, you want to go back to the orphanage?" Lorena dropped the ultimatum. "I still want to be your sister, though." Sienna went silent. The thought of returning to that hellhole terrified her. Nobody had ever love-bombed her like Lorena did, so she caved. "Don't stress, keep it on the low," Lorena whispered. And just like that, they performed the power transfer ritual. That night practically sealed Sienna's tragic fate. It wasn't until her dying breath that she realized how stupid it was to trust people or expect kindness. But now, the universe hit the reset button. She had a second chance. Even if it meant rotting in the orphanage and taking the beatings, she'd rather die than get tangled in Lorena's web again. She snapped back to reality and saw Radric slapping cuffs on Marion, the orphanage director ordering him to be locked up. Let's rewind 10 minutes. Before she woke up, Radric was staring at the unconscious girl, totally lost in his head. Was she dodging him earlier or just terrified? Suddenly, he clocked her skeletal frame. It wasn't just her. Every single kid in this place looked like a walking ghost suffering from severe malnutrition. The Noct family pumped crazy money into this place to cultivate magical talent, so the funding was definitely there. Yet these kids were living in squalor. It was obvious Marion was embezzling the funds for himself. Radric fired him on the spot. Marion tried to clap back, whining that it was unfair to ruin him over one little girl. Radric didn't even blink. He was icy. Guards dragged the trash out. That's when Sienna fluttered her eyes open. She locked gazes with the Duke. His expression was still frozen in cold rage. Sienna panicked. Did he realize she was powerless? Was he dumping her? She instantly dove into Teacher Lisa's arms, playing the fragility card to perfection. She begged the teacher not to send her away. I promise I'll be invisible. I won't eat much. Just let me stay here, she sobbed. Radric looked like he swallowed a lemon. Lisa jumped in. Your Grace, she's traumatized. Let me handle this. However, Sienna cranked up the waterworks. The aide whispered to Radric that maybe he should back off for a second. The moment Radric said, I won't force you, Sienna's tears vanished like magic. Seeing this, Radric had to retreat. For the moment, Lisa held her tight, whispering comfort. Feeling that genuine warmth, Sienna finally understood that Lorena's kindness in the past was just a trap. A snake hiding behind a sweet smile. She realized too late in her last life that her stolen magic and years of bullying were all orchestrated by Lorena, the girl she worshipped. If she had just stayed with the teacher in the first timeline, her life wouldn't have been a horror show. Lisa looked at the pale girl, heartbreaking, vowing to protect Sienna from now on. Bam! The door flew open. Everyone gasped. It was Marion. Didn't the Grand Duke drag him away? The guy was feral, lunging at Sienna and grabbing her by the hair. You little rat, you're not ruining me. Turns out he blew his life savings on bail and came back to take his rage out on Sienna. Lisa tried to block him, but he tossed her aside. Just as Sienna felt the air leaving her lungs, a voice boomed, "Get your filthy hands off her," before Marion could even turn a fist connected with his face, knocking him out cold. Sienna looked up at her savior. It was Aziel, the Grand Duke's eldest son, which was wild because in her memories, the guy had the emotional range of a rock. Radric and Aziel stood there like avenging angels as Marion got hauled off again. Sienna was shaking, realized she was a sitting duck in this world. She had zero power. She needed the Noct family's protection just to survive. Lisa squeezed her tight. Radric realized this toxic orphanage was a death sentence for Sienna. He looked at her deadly serious and asked again if she would come home to the Noct estate. There was actual desperation in his eyes. She'd never seen him look like that. Was her potential really that high? Why chase her after she rejected him multiple times? In her past life, she was gaslit into believing she stole Lorena's magic, drowning in guilt. That guilt made her Lorena's doormat. But this time, the game had changed. She used to be a total pushover, copying notes, ghostwriting letters, ignoring the blisters on her fingers, just to help style her hair. But in Asiel's eyes, a total waste of time. This family didn't need a dutiful maid. They needed a powerhouse mage. And Sienna? She'd wasted her first life playing the servant, only to meet a tragic, brutal end. Time to flip the script. Sure, the orphanage had a new director, but who's to say they weren't shady too? Could be even worse. But heading to the duchy meant facing Lorena in 6 months. Then again, with her memories intact, she could dodge Lorena's backstabbing this time around. Decision made, the duchy it is. Reluctantly, she buried herself in Lisa's arms, straight up ignoring Roderick's reaching hands. She clung to Lisa like a lifeline, refusing to let go. Lisa actually had to carry her to the carriage, promising visits and telling Sienna to be a good girl. The ride back to the mansion was dead silent. Daver and Kyocel just stared out the window. Totally awkward vibes. Sienna debated saying thanks, but nah. She was done playing the perfect child role. By the time they pulled up to the mansion, she was already out cold. Roderick gently lifted her out. Asiel reached out to take Sienna, but his dad shut him down. Didn't Asiel have work to do? Was he actually busy? Sure, but he couldn't bring himself to leave Sienna, and he had no clue why. He was already so attached to a kid he just met. Then Michael, the Grand Duke's youngest, spotted his dad, holding a girl, and rushed over. Is that the new sister? But Roderick hissed at him to keep it down and not wake Sienna. Michael whispered to Asiel, asking if she was staying for good. When he got a yes, he finally chilled out. Roderick tucked Sienna into bed, while Asiel watched her sleeping peacefully. He caught Michael staring too. It hit him. The three of them were acting weird. totally obsessed with this one little girl. Meanwhile, Sienna was having a nightmare about her sister Lorena, screaming at her, "Happy now that you stole my spot." Sienna was petrified, even though she knew Lorena's true colors. Years of conditioning in her past life kicked in. Her gut instinct obey. She bolted awake, sweating, grateful it was just a dream. She scanned the room and froze. This was Lorena's room from her past life, the moon cradle. Flashback to her first life, they stuffed her in a generic guest room, and she'd been thrilled. Compared to the orphanage, it was heaven. But Lorena, she hated it. She had her eyes on a different suite and dragged Sienna along to show it off. The moon cradle was insanely bougie, lush furniture, total luxury. It was the best suite, other than Roderick and Asiel's quarters. It even had an attached room for a personal maid. Lorena had claimed this room was perfect for Sienna, joking that when Sienna visited, she could crash in the maid's closet. Even Bradley signed off on it. The excitement Sienna felt about the room evaporated. This VIP treatment just made her feel uneasy. Her only goal this time, stay far away from Lorena. Shaking from the nightmare, she couldn't stay here. She didn't want any drama or misunderstandings. Down the line, she decided to crash in her old basic room from the first timeline. She crept through the dark, blinded by the shadows, and wiped out, scraping her leg, gritting her teeth through the pain. She finally located her old room. The bed was just a mattress and a dust sheet. Didn't matter, she passed out cold. Early the next morning, the new head maid, Deborah, was on Sienna duty. She was dying to meet this orphanage kid, figuring she must be some kind of prodigy, to score the moon cradle suite. But after knocking, forever silence. She peeked inside. Empty. The new young miss was gone. The staff tore the reception hall and study apart looking for her. Panic mode. Deborah had no choice but to tell Roderick. He was furious. How do you lose one little girl? That's when Deborah realized Sienna wasn't just a guest. This guy held massive power in the Roderick hierarchy, but he dropped everything to go on the hunt himself. The entire staff was absolutely shook that the Grand Duke personally was scouring the place for a stray orphan. Just as Roderick's anxiety peaked, a gut instinct hit him hard, like an invisible pull. He spun around, marching toward a specific door. It was that exact same heavy vibe from the orphanage. Even without seeing Sienna yet, his gut screamed, "This is it," staring down that closed door. He knew she was close. The room was vacant, sure, but someone had definitely been there. Could she actually have crashed in this freezing, filthy storage closet all night, spotting the dust-caked blanket? His heart sank for Sienna. Then he froze, bloodstains on the sheets. Was the kid hurt? He immediately rallied the staff to sweep the area. Once Deborah was the only one left in the room, the wardrobe against the wall creaked open. Deborah gasped as Sienna crawled out from the shadows, signaling her to keep it down and not tip off the others. Turns out, waking up missing on day one, she realized that vanishing act would definitely get the servants roasted by the Duke. And if that happened, she'd be public enemy number one forever. She was about to sneak back to the moon cradle, but the chaos outside spooked her, forcing her to dive into the wardrobe for cover. She whispered a plan Deborah could find her now. That way, His Grace probably wouldn't fire everyone. Deborah was stunned. This kid was so tiny, yet playing four-dimensional chess to save their skins. She scooped Sienna up and brought her to the Duke. Seeing her safe, Roderick finally exhaled, reaching out to check her injuries, but she flinched away. Sensing her walls go up, he awkwardly pulled his hand back. The doc patched her up and slipped her some candy. It triggered a flashback to her past life. Back then, even if she was dying, she only got meds if Lorena gave the green light. This level of kindness, it didn't feel like a time rewind. It felt like she'd crash-landed on a different planet. Roderick asked why she camped out in the closet. "Because the big room is way too pretty," she murmured. "I never thought it was actually for me." He went dead silent. That answer just broke his heart. Sienna studied Roderick. He wore that same tortured look from the orphanage, like he was physically holding back pain. She didn't get why he gave her a palace, but she wasn't asking. Getting attached, not part of the plan. No deep connections. This kindness was temporary. It all belonged to Lorena once she showed up. False hope was dangerous, and she was done with hoping. Sienna bowed her head and apologized, promising never to freak them out again. Roderick wanted to dig deeper, but pressing her might sound like an accusation, so he backed off. "It's not on you. Don't say sorry. You just need to know that moon cradle is your space." But Sienna's brain was already working. She'd have to surrender the room. When Lorena arrived anyway, she was about to refuse. Then a thought hit her: if she gave the room up willingly now, maybe Lorena wouldn't target her later. Her sudden silence twisted a knife in Roderick's gut. Back at the orphanage, she was a crying kid throwing tantrums, but now she was acting like a miniature adult. He figured she just needed time to adjust. Deborah, meanwhile, couldn't figure out the new young miss either, living in luxury but sighing all day. Then one morning, she brought breakfast and boom, Sienna was gone again. Suddenly, a little head popped out of the maid's quarters. Deborah was floored. Why was she camping in the staff room, but Sienna just claimed it was cozy. Her internal logic: if I stay down here, they'll eventually give up on me. She grabbed her silverware and dug in. Deborah watched, fascinated. Even for an orphan with zero training, she ate with the perfect grace of a highborn lady. As Sienna ate, her eyes got heavy, and she nodded off right in the chair. Deborah gently moved the sleepy kid to the big bed and tucked her in. But the second Sienna's eyes shut, the nightmares attacked. Lorena's voice echoed in her skull. She jolted awake, gasping. She couldn't deal with this bed. It was a nightmare machine. She crept out of the blankets, dodged the sleeping maid, and slipped into the servants' room next door. Only in that cramped space did her heart finally slow down. Those toxic flashbacks from her past life were on constant replay. She wasn't exactly Miss Popularity back then. The tea, it was piping hot and brutal. That antisocial stray is the Grand Duke's charity case. Why is she grinding like a servant, 24/7? Is she auditioning for Maid of the Year or something? With Lorena slated to be the future Duchess, did Sienna even have the credentials to exist here? She clearly didn't know her lane. And Lorena? That girl was a snake in designer clothing, pretending to care while throwing subtle shade, inviting Sienna to parties, then whispering, "Actually, if you come, everyone will just vibe check you." She gaslit Sienna, repeatedly programming her to believe she was unlovable garbage to everyone but Lorena. After years of that psychological warfare, Sienna wanted to bail, but breaking those chains was nearly impossible. In 6 months, Lorena arrives. What's she gonna think seeing me taking up space in the moon cradle? Deborah caught Sienna hiding out in the maid's quarters again and was instantly triggered. She nagged her to get back to the moon cradle as soon as possible. The Grand Duke of Noct was currently MIA, fighting magic beasts, so he dipped back to the military academy, and Michael was ghosting everyone. Sienna didn't get the pressure. Deborah wasn't having it, claiming Sienna sleeping in the servant dorms was basically slapping the Noct family in the face. Hearing that Sienna thought so, my entire previous life was just one big insult to you. Thanks for the confidence boost. Seeing Sienna moping around, Deborah decided to drag her outside for some vitamin D and a mansion tour. She was hyping up every room like a real estate agent, but Sienna was bored out of her mind. I mean, she'd already lived through this map in her past life. Zero surprises here. They hit the second-floor exhibition hall. Deborah was about to launch into a lecture when she spotted Michael chilling there. Sienna's survival instinct kicked in, and she ducked behind Deborah. She knew Michael despised cowards. She figured he'd take one look at her trembling and bounce. Instead, Michael looked restrained. He let out a heavy sigh, dismissed Deborah, and decided he would be the tour guide today. Sienna was shook. Deborah, on the other hand, was beaming, practically shoving Sienna forward before vanishing. She watched helplessly as her only shield deserted her. Then came the cold interrogation from behind. "No bow when you see me. Warning, you now don't get too comfy here." Sienna was totally used to this. Trash talk from him. His personality was a copy-paste from her past life. Toxic, arrogant, and constantly roasting her for acting like help. He asked, coldly, why she hadn't packed her bags yet. Not knowing the correct answer, she decided to just keep it 100. Agreed. Rest assured, I'm just a stray. I wouldn't dare dream of joining the family roster. When the time comes, I'm off to the military academy. I won't be an eyesore for long. But Michael's face twisted in shock. Then he snapped. How can you talk about leaving like it's nothing? His reaction left Sienna confused. Michael realized he'd slipped up, turning beet red and scrambling to cover his tracks. By switching topics at Mach speed, we're going to the exhibition hall. Now, it's not that I care if you like it, but I keep my promises. So Sienna had no choice but to awkwardly tail him through the mansion. Michael was explaining things with deadly seriousness. Sienna felt like time had stopped. She wanted to sneak away until a blinding flash from a nearby display case caught her eye. She stared at the glow. Michael followed her gaze, then rushed over to drop some lore. That's the spark of Aceros, one of the named artifacts, sealed in the Millennium Box. Only the worthy can wield this ancient tech. There are only 13 names in the world and 4 belong to Eno. 2 are with Roderick and 1 is sealed. 1 is MIA. But Aceros, it's special, never been conquered by a human. Sienna felt a crazy sense of déjà vu, staring at the stone. Suddenly, it clicked. In her past life, after Lorena stole her magic, she touched Aceros. The magical collision was nuclear. Lorena was in a coma for 2 weeks because of the backlash. Aceros shattered in half and vanished into thin air. When she woke up, Lorena was hailed as the genius who tamed the untamable, gaining clout instantly. Wait, if Lorena triggered Aceros because she had my magic, then if I touch it, will history repeat or will I die? Her hand moved on autopilot toward the stone. You want to touch it? Michael's voice snapped her back to reality. She scrambled to apologize. All right, look, you can touch it. Nothing's gonna happen. But she still gave a hard pass. The timing just wasn't right. Mako, however, went right back to lecturing. She found the whole thing excruciatingly dull and let out a massive yawn. Mako realized she had zero interest in his little speech, and that really set him off. Are you even listening to a single word? I'm pouring my heart out explaining this, and you're literally falling asleep on me. He stormed off in a huff. Finally, silence. Sienna felt like the world was actually peaceful for once, but that bliss lasted about 2 seconds before Deborah hunted her down. She told Sienna to get ready, stat. The Grand Duke had crushed the magic beasts and was coming home early. Talk about a surprise return. There was going to be a super formal family dinner tonight, and Asiel was showing up to crash the party too. Sienna wanted absolutely zero part of this. She tried to play the I don't know table manners card, but Deborah wasn't having it. She laid down the law Sienna had to be there. Deborah insisted good things were waiting for her, but to Sienna, the whole mansion felt incredibly eerie and terrified her that night. It gave her flashbacks to her past life, pure terror, sleepless nights. As the main doors slowly creaked open, seeing everyone decked out in formal gear sitting perfectly straight, she just felt humiliated. She was still wearing the rags she brought from the orphanage. Are they trying to flex on me? Why bother? I already know I don't belong here. Then she spotted the pomegranates on the dining table. That was the special emblem of House Knox, their coat of arms. Using them as table decor was weird. That's when it clicked this wasn't just dinner. This was a statement with a capital S. Even with the fancy spread, she had no appetite. Asiel noticed she was looking down and asked if the food wasn't to her taste. She was shocked he even noticed her existence. Is he blaming me for being ungrateful? Panic mode activated. She immediately apologized for being rude. Asiel got flustered. He didn't mean to scare her. Seeing the awkwardness, Derek finally spoke up to smooth things over. You don't need to apologize for not liking the food. If it's not your vibe, just leave it. He ordered the butler to bring fresh dishes. Sienna shook her head and refused. Seeing how distant and guarded she was, Derek started wondering if he had jumped the gun, inviting her to such a heavy family meeting so soon. So he decided to just rip the band-aid off and start the ceremony. He signaled the servants to bring over a plate of pomegranates. He cracked the fruit open with his bare hands. The blood-red juice dripped all over his fingers. Then the fruit was presented to Sienna. She asked if this meant something. The butler chimed in, explaining it's a House Knox tradition whenever a new member joins the squad. The head of the house personally hands out the pomegranate. It symbolizes the family, sharing blessings, counting them like the seeds inside. To Sienna, that didn't look like fruit. It looked like raw, bloody meat. This felt less like a family dinner and more like a pack of beasts tearing into their prey. Totally savage. Watching the others sample the fruit, she forced herself to pick up a seed and pop it in her mouth, but instantly graphic. Images of blood and gore flashed in her mind. She felt sick to her stomach. Derek announced that Sienna was officially a Knox. She didn't get it. She muttered, I'm just a stray orphan. Whatever you want from me, I can't do it. Derek paused. That wasn't normal kid talk. Those words didn't belong in a child's vocabulary. He realized someone must have been whispering poison in her ear. And the person closest to Sienna was Deborah. Deborah immediately threw her hands up, claiming she was loyal and devoted. I would never say that. It had to be someone else talking trash when I wasn't around. But hey, the young miss ate the pomegranate. She's officially family now. So disrespect like that won't fly anymore. The butler nodded, promising to keep the servants on a tight leash from now on. Then Deborah had an idea. Get Sienna a private tutor. Sienna agreed immediately. Because you can't slack on education. But then Mako piped up. She can just come to class with me. Sienna was floored. This kid wanted her gone this morning, and now he wants to be study buddies. Derek thought it was a great idea and ordered everything to be set up. He turned to Sienna, looking dead serious. You are a daughter of House Knox, recognized by me. Do not listen to those empty rumors. Forget them all. She almost laughed. It was ridiculous. All the hell she went through in her past life, the disgust people threw at her, the psychological scars she was forced to carry. How could she just forget that? His casual let it go meant nothing. Could her heart stabbed 1,000 times just magically heal now? Even thinking about her past life made her chest tighten until she physically couldn't breathe. Her intense reaction scared everyone in the room. She couldn't stand anymore and crumpled to the floor. Derek moved fast, scooping her up and shouting for a doctor while trying to whisper comforting words. But Sienna, she didn't want him touching her at all. She shoved him back with everything she had. That fake love, it was suffocating her. Oh, so now you're acting all sweet, just to play me like a puppet later. This house was a nightmare factory. She'd already been through hell here, completely innocent, and she'd already died once because of it. The mental toll was too heavy. Her vision went black. The doc took one look at her severe malnutrition and extreme stress. No wonder she collapsed. Roderick was eaten alive by guilt for dragging a frail, traumatized kid into a high-stakes meeting she wasn't ready for. But Sienna wasn't resting. She was trapped in a nightmare reliving her tragic past life. She truly believed she'd stolen Lorena's magic. The guilt was a monster eating her alive 24/7. Sleep was impossible. To try and make up for it, she hustled doing maid chores until she dropped. Didn't matter. That cursed mark on her skin, from the magic swap with Lorena, felt like a noose tightening. She couldn't even afford the luxury of tears. Lorena had planted the idea, you want to repay this family, make a seal amulet. It was a major magical tool for warding off evil spirits. Sienna hesitated, though. Her magic was weak. Could she even pull it off? Still, it was her only shot to prove she was worth more than a broom. She poured her soul into it. When it was done, she excitedly handed it to Asiel, only to find it later tossed in a filthy corner like trash. That broke her. She drained every drop of her magic for that. Her hands were shredded from the work. She tried to prove she mattered, and they just stomped on her heart. Asiel's words echoed in her head, Sienna, I know you're trying, but honestly, it's pointless. Thinking she could actually help him. Total delusion. While she was spiraling in her own head, she ran into Michael. He didn't miss a beat with the sarcasm. Oh look, found a new hobby to waste time on. If you know you're useless, I mean you're literally doing maid work. Why don't you just leave? Sienna tried to dodge the fight, but he kept poking the bear. Wait, you can't leave. You're too busy stalking Asiel every day. What kind of fantasy world are you living in? He had her all wrong. She just wanted to be useful, but clearly that was a pipe dream. Was she not even allowed to hope Michael walked off, muttering, pathetic? Snap back to reality, Sienna woke up. The trauma of her past life was still haunting her. She looked around confused. She was back in the moon's cradle. Sleeping in Lorena's bed. Instant anxiety. She bolted to the maid's quarters to hide. That tiny, cramped room was the only place she felt safe. But when Michael saw her there the next morning, he was shook. Deborah tried to cover, explaining that Sienna had a fever and wandered in totally out of it. Michael wasn't buying it. She ditched a luxury bed for this. Make it make sense. He started eyeing Deborah suspiciously. You're just faking. Being nice to her when my dad's watching. Right? Deborah felt totally gaslit. Before she could defend herself, Sienna jumped in. She swore it was her choice to crash there. Michael was baffled. Why choose the hard life when you've got the VIP treatment right there? Sienna almost laughed. In her past life, she thought she deserved the abuse. But since he was pressing her, she gave him the truth. The room in the moon's cradle was too nice. It stressed her out. The maid's room felt like the orphanage. It felt normal. But you're a daughter of House Knox now. And you ate the pomegranate. Michael dropped the bomb that fruit had a secret meaning. She instantly regretted that snack, literally wanting to spit it out right there. He thought she'd be jumping for joy when he dropped the Weir family line. Way too naive. Seeing the tension, Deborah stepped in and told Michael to get out so she could change Sienna. That's when Michael realized she was still in her nightgown. He turned bright red, mumbled a sorry, and bolted out the door. A new doctor showed up to check on Sienna and gave the all clear. She'd never seen this guy before. The old doc from her past life. That jerk used to ignore her and refuse treatment. But here's the tea: he got fired for missing her fever last time. Now the staff knew better than to slack off with her. Deborah served her meal like she was royalty. The special treatment was super awkward, but she couldn't say no, so she ate. Deborah dropped some news. Big day today. The Grand Duke personally hired a tailor to fit her for new clothes. Sienna was confused. Why was the Grand Duke? The guy who treated her like ice in her past life had completely flipped the script. Deborah and the tailor were hyping Sienna up, simultaneously gushing about her natural elegance. But inside, zero confidence. She felt lower than dirt. Just a stray orphan in her mind. Only the dazzling Lorena had the right vibe for this high society life. Right in the middle of her spiral, a guy walks in carrying a massive bouquet of roses. Is Miss Sienna here? Staring at the blooming petals, she literally couldn't process they were for her. But instead of butterflies, she felt pure anxiety. The card read, "Hope you recover quickly. Asiel. Asiel." Of course. The maids were losing their minds, squealing about how romantic it was. Just one of those stems costs a gold coin. Sienna had no clue she was holding a fortune. Low-key, she wished he'd just sent the cash instead. I mean, let's be real. His military academy tuition must be astronomical. Then it hit her. Why did Asiel even send these? Was this the exact trigger for Michael's misunderstanding in her previous life? Did he think she was trying to lock Asiel down for marriage? She knew Michael was clueless, but that's a wild leap. Had to be Lorena pulling the strings. That snake would totally do something like this. After all, Sienna had already been scammed into giving Lorena her magic once, but in this timeline, not happening. She wasn't letting that drama replay. First, she asked the servant to thank Asiel. Then came the power move. Distribute the flowers. Back at the orphanage, we shared everything, so I want you all to have a piece of this joy. Genius. No romantic misunderstanding for Michael to obsess over, and no disrespect to Asiel. The staff. They were hyped to get the blooms, showering Sienna with thanks. Her approval rating with the house staff skyrocketed instantly. She handed a flower to the tailor, keeping just a single rose. and the card for herself. To return the favor, the tailor gifted Sienna a stunning high-end sample dress. This wasn't just a dress. It was the shop's masterpiece, a total flex of the designer's skills. Sienna admitted it was gorgeous, even if the yellow hue gave off serious baby chick energy. Deborah thanked the tailor and beamed at Sienna. "Miss Sienna, you can rock this outfit for class tomorrow. Wait, class is starting already." She just assumed that boy would still be the same hater from her past. The tailor and Deborah checked the hall: coats, dresses, loungewear, pajamas. "We're talking over 100 outfits." Sienna never expected the Grand Duke to spoil her like this. Then Deborah pulled out a blank check signed by the Duke himself. Sienna sighed. She would never understand how rich people operate. Early the next morning, she slipped into the fancy dress. Deborah hyped her up, but Sienna felt the color was too loud. Plus, it was dripping in expensive gems and premium fabric. If she sold this later, it'd cover rent for 6 months easy. With that thought, the dress suddenly looked a lot better. Feeling chill for the first time, she opened the study door. No tutor. Instead, she found an unexpected guest, Michael. He claimed he was there to supervise. Sienna stood there speechless, wondering if he didn't have his own classes to grind. She just shook her head helpless, and quietly took her seat. Michael's eyes were already locked on her, totally mesmerized. But he kept up the tough act. "Heard you got some new gear. At least you look less like a mess now." Just then, Tutor Lloyd walked in. The second he heard Michael was supervising, he switched into full-on bootlicker mode. Sienna couldn't recall if this was the same teacher who bullied her in the past life, but she played it cool and greeted him. Before the real lesson, Lloyd dropped a pop quiz. "Write down the alphabet characters you know." Michael started scribbling furiously. Sienna hesitated. She had practiced flawless calligraphy, ghostwriting for Lorena in her past life. But she's a kid now. If she drops perfect penmanship, it's gonna look sus. She debated faking bad handwriting, but then she realized her current tiny hands, having zero muscle memory, produced crooked letters naturally. Her fingers were shaking. But Michael leaned over and hyped her up. "You write really well. Exactly what I expect from our family." Getting validation from a 10-year-old. Total cringe. But Lloyd was getting impatient, slamming the paper on the desk and snapping at Sienna to stop playing around in practice. Suddenly, the door crashes open. A random guy barges in, claiming he's Mako's handler, and he's here to drag the kid back to the grind. Mako catches Sienna staring and immediately gets defensive. "Don't get it twisted. I didn't come here because I actually care about you or anything." He points a finger at the teacher, voice sharp. "You better teach her right. Don't slack off just because I'm not watching." Then the handler yanks Mako out without another word. The second they're gone, Lovell, who was just acting like a total suck-up, drops the mask. Boom, there's the abusive dirtbag Sienna remembers from her past life. He starts spewing venom again, tearing her down with every word. But honestly, Sienna, seeing his true ugly colors, is better than the fake nice guy act. It's the wolves in sheep's clothing that really suffocate you. Lovell is high on his own power trip, looking down his nose at Sienna and mocking her like she's some stray mutt. His trash talk doesn't make Sienna panic, but she has zero patience for hearing these personal attacks. A second time around, she knows his deal. He came from an orphanage too. He's a wash-up who achieved. Nothing stuck teaching a charity case like her, and he is projecting his massive jealousy. Mid-rant, Sienna cuts him off cold. "You keep dropping the orphan card in every sentence. Is that because being an orphan is actually your biggest insecurity?" Bullseye. She hit him where it hurts. His smug calm explodes into humiliated rage. He grabs her hand raised to deliver a slap. Sienna squeezes her eyes shut. "If taking one hit gets me a new teacher, it's a fair trade." "Stop!" A furious roar freezes the room. Roderick is standing in the doorway, eyes radiating sub-zero energy. Lovell scrambles, shoving Sienna away and instantly playing the victim, claiming she started it. Roderick stares at Sienna. His face is unreadable, which freaks her out. Is he going to misunderstand her again, like in the old timeline? But she is done with false accusations and toxic misunderstandings. She refuses to let history repeat itself. So she steps up, grips his sleeve, and hits him with the most sincere, "Please trust me" look she can muster. This actually shakes Roderick. She always runs away from me. For her to approach me willingly, she must have been terrified. The tutor tries to spin some twisted lie, but Roderick shuts him down instantly. Devon steps in and restrains the guy. "You dare provoke a daughter of the Knox family. You're going to pay for that." Watching the trash get taken out, Sienna finally exhales. Roderick looks at her trembling form. He wants to comfort her, but he's terrified he'll spook her. He tells himself to take it slow, no pressure. He tells her to get some rest and leaves. Sienna feels like she's in a dream. The Grand Duke just decided to believe her, no questions asked. Why would he do that? But she can't let her guard down. If she leans on his kindness and it suddenly vanishes, she'll fall into the abyss. Also, she has a burning question. She asks Deborah to explain exactly what the pomegranate symbol means. But Deborah, being just the head maid, is clueless about the specific lore. So she suggests asking Mako. Speak of the devil, Mako literally bursts into the room right then. Deborah goes full drill sergeant on him for forgetting protocol. He scrambles out and knocks on the door properly. Only after getting the green light does he peek in and apologize. He starts puffing his chest, saying if he was there, he would have crushed that guy to protect her. Deborah is weeping with joy, but Sienna just feels drained. She doesn't want to owe anyone favors. Too late, Mako already pitched the study buddies idea to his dad, and Raderick signed off on it. So now Sienna is stuck in class with him. This news hits her like an ice bucket challenge. She's forced to study with someone she doesn't even want to see every day. Seeing her pained face, Mako assumes she's just being shy. He smugly tells her not to worry about being a burden to his genius. He figures she's the silent sufferer type, so he promises he won't let today's drama happen again, and that his dad will screen the teachers better. He hypes Sienna up to flex her skills, so nobody looks down on her for being an orphan. But she has zero interest in proving anything. Why build sandcastles when the tide is just going to wreck them anyway? One slip up and she's swept away by the waves. So she literally couldn't care less if people look down on her. Mako can't comprehend her quiet quitting vibe at all, but he can't fix it. He just drags her to class. Mako's teacher sees, looks like a total gentleman. Sienna recognizes him as the guy who hauled Mako away earlier, but now he's wearing a warm, gentle smile. Totally friendly vibes. Seeing Cess is about to start a magic lesson, she raises her hand. Pause. I don't even know how to write yet. But Cess, he told her to zero her stress levels. The basics, like writing, that's for the other instructors to handle. She'd pick it up on the fly, no sweat. Michael leaned in, whispering a warning, don't let Asiel's angel face fool you. Because beneath that smile, he's a total taskmaster. He'll have her grinding 24/7. Sienna didn't flinch. She loved it. She bowed deeply, showing pure gratitude. A teacher who actually pushes her limits. That's exactly the kind of cheat code she needs for her future. Life at the military academy kicked off. Asiel was practically vibrating with excitement. He finally scored a model student. Even if Sienna's handwriting was still a little shaky, she was taking notes like her life depended on it. Seeing that dedication just threw gasoline on Asiel's teaching fire. He dove deep into magic theory, stability principles, the works, and geeked out about high-level terraformers among the mages. He speed ran through half the textbook in one sitting and dropped a mountain of homework. But when he checked in on Sienna, asking if the pace was too brutal, she didn't even blink. Total confidence. That sealed the deal. He had absolutely landed the perfect prodigy. This wasn't just any class. It was her first real magic lesson, across 2 lifetimes. Unlike the tragic timeline where Lorena snatched her powers this time, her magic was hers alone. She was finally at the starting line. She was going to milk this second chance at Seabon Military Academy for everything it was worth. Meanwhile, Asiel stood by the window, gazing out into the distance. A messenger falcon circled overhead before swooping down to land on his arm. He scanned the message with laser focus. Letters from home had been piling up. Every single day lately. A buddy asked if there was drama going down back home, but Asiel just shut that conversation down. Turning his back on the room, he made up his mind he was heading home. Back at the ranch, someone knocked on the door. Michael heard Sienna had been grinding on homework for 3 straight days, and he let out a heavy sigh. Compared to her machine-like focus, he was hopeless at studying. But Sienna, she was just speechless. She didn't get why he was humble bragging. In the future timeline, this guy literally camps at the #1 spot in the academy, while she had to fight tooth and nail just to decode a single sentence. Still, even if it wasn't fun, she vibed with the solitary grind, ignoring the calluses and cuts forming on her hands. From all that writing, Deborah clocked the glow up immediately. Sienna went from silent mode to full-on enthusiastic. She suggested, Sienna, take a breather and touch some grass in the courtyard. Right then, Asiel pulled up. The butler knew exactly why the young master was rushing home. Every single weekend. Seeing him bolt for the stairs, the butler dropped a gentle reality check. If you're looking for Miss Sienna in her room, you're wasting your time. She's been locked in study mode lately. Asiel froze. He realized he wasn't heading to his own quarters. His feet were automatically taking him to find Sienna. It hit him. He loses all cool whenever she's involved. But he masked it, forcing a look of annoyance and rejection into his eyes. He figured his intense vibe is what freaked her out before, so he scrapped the plan to see her and turned to leave. The butler wasn't buying the tough guy act. He knew Asiel cared. The guy literally ordered daily status updates on her and overnighted flowers whenever she was under the weather. But it didn't add up. If Asiel was so obsessed with her safety, why not just check on her? Himself, Asiel finally caved and went to the study. But bad timing, Sienna was already out for her walk. He scanned the room, checking her setup. Only after confirming she wasn't living in squalor did his shoulders drop. This was the same spot where Asiel ground through his own childhood studies. He brushed his hand over the desk they now shared, trying to catch a vibe of connection. Then something caught his eye under the desk. He flinched, total disbelief washing over him. It was the rose, the one he gave Sienna. He tried to gaslight himself. It's just a generic gift. It means nothing to her. That's why she tossed it. But if that's true, why did his chest feel like it was caving in? Deborah witnessed the whole thing and was shook. She started to explain, but Asiel spun around and bailed, dropping one cold command: "Don't tell Sienna I was here." He glanced back one last time at the withered flower under the desk. Suddenly, a déjà vu hit him like a truck. A familiar scene flashed in his mind, and his eyes went wild with emotion. What was this weird sense of recognition? It felt like a memory from another life. Meanwhile, Sienna strolled back from the garden to find the servants in full panic mode. Michael dropped the bomb. Count Yodenak sent a letter. His daughter is pulling up to challenge the ownership of the so-called Azeros. Sienna's memory clicked. That's the holy artifact humans use to wreck magic beasts. And literally the exact item she planned to use as her get-out-of-jail-free card in the endgame. Michael explained that since the Azeros is currently unclaimed, it's free real estate. Any mage can fight for it. Sienna. She rewound the tape to her past life. Count Hildenak wasn't a leader. He was a sheep chasing trends and hunting for practical clout. So why the sudden plot twist in this timeline? Why pull a move he never made before? She figured it had to be the butterfly effect, and she was the chaos agent, rewriting history. The current Countess of Hildenak was probably seething, watching the Grand Duke of Nox spoil an orphan. She definitely believed her daughter was 100 times the prize and wanted her girl on that throne. It fits her toxic logic perfectly. After all, the Countess beefed with Lorena in the last life and totally self-destructed. Getting adopted by House Nox was the ultimate VIP pass, and Asiel was prime husband material. So naturally, everyone was thirsty for that spot, even though there wasn't a single rule. Explicitly stating the adoptee had to marry Asiel, the gossip mill seemed to assume becoming a Nox foster daughter was a one-way ticket to being Asiel's bride. Asiel couldn't help but scoff at himself. This whole mess was on him. By the book, he couldn't block the Count's daughter from shooting her shot, even if his heart was 100% locked on Sienna. Meanwhile, Sienna was waging war against a high bookshelf. Since the Hildenak announcement dropped, every maid in the mansion had vanished to prep. Even the newbie Deborah assigned to her was MIA. With zero backup, she handled it herself, just like her gritty past life. But the books were jammed tight. She took a tumble, hitting the floor, and suddenly realized how deafening the silence was. She'd gotten used to the entourage and pampering, so why did this sting of resentment hit differently? She forced herself to grind on magic studies. She knew exactly how to gaslight her own broken heart. By nightfall, hunger pangs hit so hard, she had to go on a solo snack run. Relying on muscle memory from her past life, she navigated to the kitchen. Just as she reached for a loaf of bread, she bumped into Asiel looming in the doorway. He looked shook to find her there. She mumbled she was just starving. "Didn't the head maid prep your dinner? She's swamped, but she assigned others to watch me." "So where did that maid go? Why are you solo in the kitchen?" He suspected the staff might be neglecting her on purpose. The fact that she knew the kitchen's layout hinted this was a regular occurrence. His blood started boiling. He never imagined she was tanking this kind of abuse. He reached out to comfort Sienna, but she swerved his hand like it was fire. She used to think Asiel didn't hate her in the past, just that he was icy to everyone. She once gave him an amulet, hoping for validation, but his cold words had ruthlessly crushed her hopes. "Sienna, your efforts are useless." She begged him not to snap at the staff because of her, and shut down his offer to walk her back. Right on cue, the butler appeared. Asiel ordered the butler to watch over Sienna and deal with the slacker servants. Watching her tiny figure retreat, he couldn't shake the look in her eyes. Not just fear, but pure exhaustion and distance. Finally, the Hildenak squad pulled up. That afternoon, Count Hildenak's daughter, Isabel, rocking the red hair, put on a performance of politeness for Asiel, thanking him for the invite. Countess Hildegard chimed in, hyping up her perfect daughter. Asiel saw right through the cringe, but for the sake of manners, he still welcomed them inside. Isabel was internally screaming, "Oh my god, I'm actually dining at House Nox. It feels like a fever dream," but Michael found her vibes way too loud. Everyone knew the real agenda was to snatch Sienna's spot as the foster daughter. Powerless to stop it, they still had to keep up appearances and play the game. They entered the drawing room. Asiel was thrown off to find Sienna was already dolled up and waiting. Michael ditched Isabel and sprinted to Sienna's side, chatting without a care for protocol. Asiel felt a twinge of jealousy seeing them so close. He introduced the Hildenaks. "This is Sienna, daughter of House Nox." Isabel side-eyed Sienna with zero chill. "So, this is the rumored orphan house. Nox is so obsessed with Countess Hildegard. Decided to stir the pot by asking for Sienna's surname." Sienna knew exactly what that snake was doing. She stated bluntly she was an orphan, so no fancy last name. Michael was fuming at Countess Hildegard for trolling a child, but the Countess just raised her wine glass and pivoted the convo. "Lord Asiel, thanks for the lavish spread. Isabel hit Asiel with a shy pick-me look, but he just gave a robotic reply. Meanwhile, Michael was treating Sienna like absolute royalty, serving up dinner with zero chill. Asiel watched the two of them, a tiny pang of jealousy hitting his chest, but mostly he was just relieved. Seeing Sienna actually eating like a human being instead of a bird was a huge win. Then cue the drama. Isabel decided to crash the vibe. Sienna, seriously, you hit the jackpot. Nobody gets the privilege of getting adopted by the Grand Duke Noct. You could practically see the green monsters of jealousy swimming in her eyes. But Sienna unfazed. She's dealt with way worse hostility. I'm truly grateful for the Duke's kindness, she replied, cool as ice. That shut the whole room up instantly. Isabel flinched, totally shook. She couldn't wrap her head around it. How is this orphanage girl acting more composed than a grown woman? Nobody saw that clapback coming. One sentence, and Isabel was already on the back foot. Honestly, compared to the straight-up venomous Lorena, Isabel is amateur hour. Sienna let out a tired sigh, but Isabel took it personal, thinking she was being mocked. She was raging inside. Does this clueless brat actually think she's special? Just because she stole a spot she doesn't deserve, I'm the only one fit for House Noct. Time to show Sienna what real power looks like. She slammed down a challenge faced the Hasaros. Tomorrow, everyone gasped, even Countess Hilda. Didn't see that curveball coming. Isabel quickly spun the narrative, since she's the Duke's official adoptee. She must be way more talented than me, right? It wouldn't be fair to leave her out. Her plan? Simple. They'd both fail, but Isabel would look way better doing it, proving she's superior. And totally humiliating Sienna publicly. Sienna paused. Things just got spicy. Maybe this is her ticket out of this tragic mess. Meanwhile, Michael was freaking out. He was terrified that if Sienna tanked the challenge and Isabel aced it, what if Isabel demands they ship Sienna back to the orphanage? Go back to the orphanage. Sienna's chill vibe was driving him nuts. How can you say that so casually? You think we'd just dump you? We're family now. You already ate the pomegranate. There's no backing out. See, in House Noct, the pomegranate isn't just a snack, it's the initiation ritual for official members. It's ancient magic that lets people without Noct blood survive inside the family's powerful barriers. It clicked for Sienna. That fruit magic meant she was biologically locked in as a Noct, zero takebacks. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She was shackled to this family for life. Meanwhile, cut to Isabel's room, pacing holes in the floor, totally regretting her impulsive mouth. Countess Hildegard stepped in, stopping her panicked daughter. Chill, darling. You're nothing like that orphan. You've got me. I've already rigged it with the head maid. You're going to win. Elsewhere, Asiel was stressing over the challenge. House Rose, the butler, tried to cool him down. They're both gonna fail, sir. It'll be a wash. No big deal. But here's the kicker. Sometimes challengers get trapped in the simulation with zero escape route. Asiel was terrified Sienna would get cornered. He turned to the butler. Be real with me, does Sienna actually have talent? The butler shrugged. Can't tell until her powers actually manifest. Only the Grand Duke could spot that potential, but he's stuck on the battlefield right now. He suggested Asiel crank the difficulty to impossible so nobody wins. The butler wasn't feeling that plan, though. First off, the Hildegard faction would throw a fit. And secondly, it would wreck Sienna's reputation later. Asiel hesitated, wishing he could just tank the damage for her. Suddenly, Michael burst into the room. Panic. Mode. Help. Sienna's trying to leave. Sienna stood her ground. Lord Asiel, let me face Hasaros. Asiel shut it down instantly. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. You need training for that beast. Sienna looked confused, but Seth said that anyone can challenge it, even rookies. Asiel shot a death glare at Seth. Seth tried to smooth it over. Look, every mage has the right of challenge. Sienna's got a ticket just like everyone else. Michael, losing it, stomped on Seth's foot. He turned to Asiel, desperate. She said she'll go back to the orphanage if Isabel actually wins. Asiel looked stunned, but Sienna's stone-cold poker face. Asiel couldn't compute. Why did she think they'd toss her out? Does she really feel like she doesn't belong here? With that logic, he finally caved and gave Sienna the green light for the challenge. Permission slip secured, she bounced back to her room, feeling totally satisfied with the win. But she walked straight into an ambush of the culinary kind. The new maid had prepped a literal feast, staring at that mountain of food. She felt a food coma coming on just by looking at it. Overwhelmed, she immediately hit the eject button and sprinted out of the room. She ended up camping out behind a garden tree, realizing how much the vibe had shifted from that old negligent maid who got fired. This new maid was way too intense, constantly trying to force-feed her like a grandma on a mission. Suddenly, her stealth mode failed. She ran right into Isabel, who pulled up with major mean girl energy. How can you walk around this mansion so shamelessly? If I were you, I'd be too embarrassed to even leave my room. Then again, I guess I can't expect class from an orphan. Sienna found this whole interaction weird. In her past life, the Hildegard family never threw this much shade this openly. Is Isabel trying to trigger her on purpose? But honestly, the girl's skills were way too low level to actually do any damage. Sienna's lips curled into a tiny, mocking smirk, which absolutely triggered Isabel. "You're laughing. Keep laughing while you can. You little pest." The title of adopted daughter of House Knox is reserved for the elite people with actual talent. Useless garbage like you doesn't deserve it. But instead of fighting back, Sienna looked at her with total admiration. "You know what? I agree. I stan you for the position." Isabel nodded aggressively. "Exactly. Of course you should support M." "Wait, what?" Her brain buffered, and she dropped her fan in pure confusion. Sienna sweetly picked up the fan and grabbed Isabel's hand, hyping her up. "Please make sure you take my spot. I'll support you 100%. That kill them with kindness move made Isabel explode with rage. What was happening? Sienna just walked away, leaving her glitching. Later, Michael dropped the news. Dad was back. That meant she had to play the perfect hostess and greet guests again. Dreading another social event, she immediately started hacking up a lung, faking sick. Michael looked super worried, asking what was wrong. She spun a story about catching a chill in the courtyard. Suddenly, a cool hand brushed against her forehead. He leaned in to check her temperature. When their eyes locked, time just stopped for a second. Then, Michael flashed a knowing smile. "It kills your appetite having to face the people who hate you directly, doesn't it?" She was shook. He could literally read her mind. Then she heard him whisper, "I'd love to kick them out too, but since they're knocking as fellow nobles, we can't just be rude. But Dad's home, so this drama ends tomorrow." After dropping that truth bomb, he gently patted her head, praising her for being a good girl. Sienna stood there totally stunned by the sudden affection. It wasn't until Michael left that she rebooted. She hurriedly ruffled her own hair. Seriously, what 10-year-old has that much riz? Early the next morning, she woke up to radio silence. No maids, no wake-up call. Weird. On such a huge day, she got up to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. Locked from the outside, the realization hit her instantly. Someone was trying to sabotage her challenge. What a basic cliché villain move. She had seen this exact script 1,000,000 times in her past life. Unbothered, she went back to bed to wait it out. Nap time. Finally, Deborah's voice came through the door, and the lock clicked open. Seeing Sienna curled up in the blankets, the maid was frantic. Sienna awkwardly explained that since she was trapped, she figured she might as well catch some Z's. Deborah sighed, totally floored that Sienna was this chill about being locked up without screaming for help. Sienna admitted she didn't think anyone would actually come save her. That hit Deborah hard. "You think Countess Godenack bribed me to ditch you, don't you?" Sienna stayed silent, just urging her to hurry up so they wouldn't be late. Meanwhile, the main hall was buzzing with anxiety and complaints. Michael was sweating bullets, terrified something happened to Sienna. The Countess and Isabel were exchanging smirk signals, clearly thinking their little trap worked. Just then, Sienna and Deborah burst in. Facing the angry crowd, Deborah immediately dropped to her knees to apologize. She looked straight at the Grand Duke of Knox to defend her lady. "There is a valid reason why Miss Sienna is late. It's all because of the guests." Hearing that lame excuse, Countess Gildina started sweating bullets. Deborah didn't hold back. "By guests, she means us. Unbelievable how this house treats people." She claimed she was personally watching Sienna, but apparently pawned her off on random maids just to prep for the party. He never guessed they'd literally starve her. Hearing his precious daughter was abused, Radric saw red. The crowd started whispering, "How could the staff starve such a fragile little girl? Are they monsters?" Totally unacceptable. The whole room's heart broke for Sienna. Then Deborah dropped the real bombshell. Sienna's late because the new maid locked her in her room. She spilled the tea. Countess Gildina ordered the hit, promising 100 gold coins just to keep Sienna away from the trial. Busted. With the plan exposed, Countess Gildina went into full damage control mode, denying everything. "No, we'd never stoop that low," Radric scoffed at her lies. "So, the head maid is just making it up." Funny. His glare was so cold it sent shivers down Gildina's spine. Before things got ugly, the priest cut in. "Your Grace, the trial can't wait. We need to start. Now." He shot Gildina a look that screamed, "We are not done here," promising punishment after the show. If they failed, they were toast. Radric made it clear, even if Isabel wins the title, he's hunting them down to the bitter end. Seeing him dead serious, Isabel started panicking. Gildina tried to calm her down. "Just beat that orphan, prove you're superior, and this all goes away." Isabel tried to hype herself up. "Right, if I prove I'm better than that orphan, everyone will forget the bullying and worship me." She strutted over to Sienna and hissed, "Can't believe I have to share this stage with you." Sienna just shrugged, saying she didn't try as hard as Isabel just to be here. That comment triggered Isabel instantly. Her eyes went pitch black with rage. Sienna blinked, surprised by the intensity. Suddenly, the priest kicked off the event and laid down the law. Aceros picks the master. If you get rejected, take the loss and move on. Also, becoming the head of the named house means you get the honor of being the guardian of humanity. No takebacks. Then the priest announced Isabel was up first. She stared at the purification water, holding Aceros terrified. Gildina held her breath, stress levels maxing out. The second Isabel reached out, a massive force blasted her back. Game over. Failed. Countess Gildina lost it, screaming for a do-over. Isabel ignored everyone and jammed her hand back in. Boom! An even bigger shockwave slammed her to the floor. Gildina and Isabel were instantly crushed, realizing they were totally doomed. Next up, the priest called out. Sienna's turn to face Aceros. Asiel and Mako were on the edge of their seats. Sienna took a deep breath and dipped her hand in. Nothing. Dead silence. She figured it out in her past life. Lorena broke Aceros because she held the magic of two people, but now just her own magic. That's why it was quiet. Just as she pulled back, a voice whispered, "No, don't go." She looked around. Nobody else heard a thing. Hearing things, it looked like a fail. Then the voice hit again. "What are you saying? You didn't fail." Sienna realized. It was Aceros. "Yeah, I've been waiting 2,000 years for you, my first master." She snatched her hand back and pivoted. Nope. She just wanted a cozy, low-key life, not the stress of saving humanity. She faked it. "Ow, my hand hurts, I failed." But Aceros wasn't having it. Boom! Aceros erupted from the water wrapped in magnificent flames. Sienna heard his angry roar. "Hey, I said don't leave!" A massive purification fire exploded, raging uncontrollably. Everyone was absolutely shook. Asiel and Mako moved to save her, but Radric signaled them to stop. The flames engulfed Sienna, but weirdly, she didn't feel any heat. The raging inferno shrunk down into a tiny, focused flame. It was Aceros. Sienna tried to back away, stuttering nervously that she never signed up to be his boss. "You really think I'm here fishing for your approval? Please, I know I'm not the first named one you've crossed paths with. Stop comparing me to the rest." But then, Sienna dropped a bomb, claiming she'd never met another named spirit before. Aceros circled her, totally vibing off the confusion. He knew that scar. He couldn't be wrong. So, he pressed her. "Why the hesitation on the contract?" Sienna's clapback. She wasn't interested in owning him, but right as she opened her mouth to spill the tea, her world went blurry. Lights out. She hit the floor cold. Nearby, the rookie mages reacted on pure instinct, firing off their debut spells. A phenomenon known as the first manifestation. It's a big deal because the vibe and power level basically predict exactly what kind of heavy hitter they'll become. Sienna's power. Pure purification. The priest took one look and called it, guaranteeing she'd be a top-tier terraformer. Everyone started hyping up Roderick. I mean, let's be real, terraformers are the MVPs who save mages from getting consumed by dark energy. But the real jaw-dropper? Sienna didn't just sparkle. She obliterated the ancient curse, rotting the Nox estate from the inside out, a feat no previous terraformer could pull off. Her cleansing wave didn't just scrub the bad vibes, it unleashed a massive surge of life force. She literally force-started spring, turning a freezing winter day into a blooming paradise. To let her recharge her batteries, Roderick cleared the room, but he wasn't just babysitting, he was prepping the courtroom. For Countess Hildenach and Isabel, once the coast was clear, he leaned in. "You can open your eyes now, Sienna." Busted. She'd been fake sleeping to dodge the social exhaustion of a crowded room. Roderick, he totally got it. Finally alone, the panic set in. She was in deep, like way over her head. Suddenly, a voice cut through. Deep drama queen, much Aceros, popped out whining as usual. He stretched his tiny limbs, hyped that he could finally ditch the disguise, and stop pretending to be a necklace. Sienna was fuming. He'd knocked her out cold just to force a contract. Without her say-so, Aceros rolled his eyes. Apparently dipping her hand in the evolution water was the old-school way of sliding into his DMs and begging for a pact. Technically, she sent the invite and Aceros just hit accept. Fair game, fair trade, no backsies. She knew. Arguing with a magical spirit was a waste of breath. So she pivoted. How did she nuke the dark energy? Haunting House Nox. Aceros puffed out his chest. That was his signing bonus. "I dropped a spell so heavy, nobody will ever disrespect you again." But Sienna wasn't celebrating. She was stressing out. The last thing she wanted was a spotlight. Even with god-tier magic in this timeline, she craved the quiet life. Zero drama. Aceros's flame flickered out in shock. "You dumping me? Keep dreaming." "We're locked in forever," he whined, pulling the puppy dog eyes. "I did it for you. You didn't even realize the people rotting with dark energy were standing right next to you." That's when it clicked. Countess Hildenach and Isabel didn't just break bad randomly. Their psycho mood swings and twisted actions all fueled by the corruption. Cut to the courtroom, the two villains were on their knees, shaking like leaves. They were totally lost on why they had gone so far off the deep end. Roderick watched them stone-faced. Countess Hildenach had finally snapped back to reality the second she saw Aceros's light. With the fog lifted, she was reeling, trying to figure out why they acted so stupid. She knew something internal had to be wrong, but the damage was done. Excuses don't fix wreckage. Countess Hildenach looked up at Roderick, owning the mess but begging for Isabel's life. Roderick, however, he wasn't. in a forgiving mood. He wanted their execution to send a loud message. House Knox has zero tolerance for traitors. The executioner's blade gleamed, mirroring their terror. And that's when Sienna burst onto the scene. Asiel freaked out, ripping into the guards for letting her in. Sienna shut it down. She came because she wanted to, and begged him to spare the servants. That's when Asiel yelled, "Stop!" The whole room gasped in pure awe. "That's the spirit owner for you. She's got Asiel on a leash," the crowd whispered. Roderick sheathed his blade, his icy stare locked onto Sienna. That look triggered a major flashback to her past life, back when Lorena framed her for using dark arts to cause harm. Didn't matter how hard she pleaded her innocence. The Grand Duke threw her in the dungeon to rot. A gentle voice snapped her back to the present. Roderick asked if she was okay. She steeled herself. "Aceros told me the Hildenach family was possessed by dark energy. That's why they went rogue." The room exploded into whispers. Makes total sense why they acted so crazy. If Aceros hadn't purified them, the corruption would have taken over, and they would have gone full psycho. Sienna blinked. She didn't expect Aceros' name to carry that much weight. So everyone asked Sienna why she swooped in to save the Hildenach family. She keeps it real, though I didn't save anyone. I don't have that kind of power. I just felt the truth deserved a spotlight. As for how you punish them, not my call. That's way above my pay grade as an orphan. That decision is all you, boss. His Grace Roderick goes silent for a beat, letting the tension simmer before finally dropping the gavel on the Hildenach crew. The verdict: fork over half of the Count's mining shares to Sienna. Just a little financial compensation. Honestly, they got off incredibly easy. The Hildenach family was practically weeping with relief. Grateful Sienna helped them dodge a bullet. Isabel is having flashbacks to Grace, the girl who saved her life, swearing she'd pay that kindness forward. Meanwhile, Diana is staring at the equity contract like it's written in alien hieroglyphs. Plot twist: this isn't some basic rock quarry. It cranks out essential gems capable of channeling serious magic spells. We're talking high-tier conduits for purification charms. These stones are insanely rare and priceless. Sienna tries to back out immediately. That kind of value is too heavy for her to hold. And here's the kicker. In her past life, this exact mine was the price Isabel had to pay Lorena after taking a massive loss in a secret war. Having that kind of mega wealth land in her lap now, that could trigger some serious butterfly effects. But Roderick advises her to secure the bag. If she has the gift, she needs the resources to match. "I can't, Your Grace. Either give it back or hold it for me." Suddenly, Roderick shoots up from his seat. He locks eyes with Sienna, dead serious. "You're done being the orphan. You are the owner of the renowned treasury now. Big privilege means big responsibility." You can practically feel the weight of the world crushing down on her shoulders with those words. "But, Sienna, if you still want to run from those duties, go ahead." Sienna freezes. Did he just say she could actually live for herself? That's a plot twist she didn't see coming. Roderick doubles down. "Forget what anyone else thinks. The House of Liberty has your back, a sanctuary even I can't violate. So drop the orphan label. You have a home now." She's stunned, but the guy looks so genuine, so compassionate. It hits hard. Her head starts spinning. The nightmare events of her past life, they never happened in this timeline. It feels like she's the only one shackled to those dark memories. But can you just delete deep trauma like a bad file? Can she really reboot her life like nothing happened? No shot. Without a sincere apology or regret, forgiveness isn't on the menu. She would rather carry the weight of those memories for the rest of her life. Even though the Hildenachs paid up, this arc isn't over. Deborah found a vial of highly toxic potion capable of nuking magic temporarily. Where that potion came from, total mystery. And the source of the dark energy pulsing through the Hildenach family is just as sketchy. This screams full investigation needed. Cut to late that night, Marco finds himself standing in a room that feels way too familiar. There's a grown man pacing like a caged tiger spitting curses. These people don't know their place. I don't want to see their faces. Why did Dad drag that brat into this mansion? Marco is stuck in a chair, paralyzed, trying to figure out who the guy is trash-talking. The man is losing it. He spins around and Marco's heart stops. He's staring at an older version of himself. He jolts awake from the nightmare, absolutely drenched in cold sweat. Who was the person he despised so much in the dream? And who was that girl who flashed by in his memory? Next morning, everyone is hyping Sienna up as the new terraformer, thanking her for bringing an early spring to the estate. Even though Sienna missed the visual effects hearing, their blessings put a real smile on her face. CS watches with a satisfied nod, realizing the Grand Duke played 4D chess with this move. Someone had pitched a massive banquet to flex Sienna's terraformer status to the public immediately. But Roderick shut it down. He claimed Sienna isn't ready for the spotlight as a daughter of the house, and banned outsiders from getting near her. Behind the scenes, the clout-chasing nobles were panicking. Roderick's firewall made it tough to get close, but that didn't stop the hustle. We're talking toys, gem-encrusted treasures, and gold stacked like a mini mountain. Every noble was trying to buy favor. but Roderick sent every single box back. At the time, C's didn't get the logic. Now, seeing Sienna's genuine smile, she realizes the Grand Duke calculated every step to keep the girl safe. Because Sienna is officially a terraformer, she's obligated to enroll in the Chevron Military Academy at 14. So basic education starts now, and honestly, she's hyped, ready to take notes like a total pro. Cess breaks down the terraformer lore, and Sienna is locked in absorbing every word of the lesson. No homework today. Sienna was low-key bummed. She's the type who actually vibes with grinding through assignments. That has to be a historic first, a student actually complaining that they wanted homework. Ever since getting caught slipping up, Horatio was forced to pivot to teaching. And just like that, his grueling, torture-filled career as a tutor began. But finally, a ray of light pierced through his gloomy existence. An absolute academic angel, Lady Sienna. It was the perfect match. She was hyped on his diligent, scholarly vibes, and he was totally charmed by her eagerness to learn. Their teacher-student dynamic was honestly too wholesome. Go ahead, Miss Sienna. Name your poison. What kind of homework are you craving? I can whip up anything you want. Michael walked in on this scene and let out a heavy sigh. Yeah, they've officially lost their minds. Deborah just laughed it off, claiming they were just passionate about knowledge. But Michael paused. He'd never seen Sienna beam with that kind of genuine happiness before. By dinner time, that study session adrenaline crashed hard. Sienna went from hyper-focus to literally nodding off at the table. Michael couldn't resist teasing her. He told her to stay awake and finish her plate. If she did, they could head out together. That invitation woke her up instantly. Seeing her perk up, he dropped the plan, a trip to the shopping district. Back in her orphanage days, the director was paranoid about them causing trouble, so they were on total lockdown. Even at the house, she'd only stepped out a handful of times with Lorena during breaks. Catching that slightly mischievous smirk on his face, she felt like saying yes was somehow admitting defeat. But as Michael studied her face, a vague memory flickered. For a split second, the image of that girl lying there peacefully flashed through his mind again. Shaking it off, Michael whisked her away for a much-needed change of scenery. It was literally her first time experiencing the chaos of a bustling market. Taking in the vibrant energy, pure joy bubbled up in her chest. Michael played the tour guide enthusiastically, introducing her to everything in sight. Passers-by spotted the family carriage and stopped dead in their tracks, bowing respectfully as they watched Michael help Sienna step down. Whispers started circulating immediately was that the rumored adopted daughter of the house. Experiencing her first shopping spree, Sienna was curious about everything. Michael stuck by her side, treating her to snacks and drinks. So, how is it? Just walking around is pretty fun, right? She had to agree it was actually really nice. A rare moment where she could just chill and let her guard down. Just then, a pair of bright red leather shoes in a display window caught her eye. Michael followed her gaze and didn't hesitate. I'm getting them for you, he declared, signaling the shop owner to let Sienna try them on. Before she knew it, she was seated with a servant helping her slip her feet into the shoes. She looked up to see both Michael and the owner giving her enthusiastic thumbs-ups. Honestly, they were being a little too extra about this. She'd only glanced at them out of curiosity, so actually trying them on had her feeling low-key embarrassed. My God, it's like they were custom-made for you, Michael exclaimed, dropping the cash immediately. She was about to decline, but he was dead serious. Take them. I really want to do this for you. Next stop the toy store. But instead of the cute teddy bears, what really grabbed her attention was a detailed miniature house model. It looked simple on the outside, but the interior layout absolutely exquisite. Is this what a real home looks like? In her eyes, neither the orphanage nor the mansion felt like home. They were just places she resided. Staring at that model, a deep craving hit her. She wanted a home like that one day. Suddenly, poof, Aceros materialized out of nowhere. He zoomed right into the tiny house, exploring it freely. I'm vibing with this. It matches my aesthetic perfectly. Seeing Aceros gave it the seal of approval. Michael swiped his card, figuratively speaking, without a second thought. Sienna wondered if a spirit actually needed a physical house, but Aceros claimed he just wanted to own some prime real estate. Sienna paused. It resonated with her own wish to have a home that was more than just shelter. After bustling around for a bit, Aceros clapped his tiny hands and invited Sienna to check out his new pad. Before she could even react, a powerful force sucked her in. Welcome to my humble abode. Her eyes went wide as she stared at the mysterious redhead standing in front of her. Wait, Aceros, is that you, sharp kid? You catch on fast. Yep, it's me, master. She looked around and realized she was standing inside a life-sized version of the toy model. Reality check. Aceros had used magic to materialize this space based on the toy creating his own pocket dimension home. Sienna tilted her head. Why did you make Michael buy that toy then? Didn't you destroy your last vessel? Exactly. I needed an upgrade. She snapped back, annoyed. You're the one who smashed that necklace, remember? Aceros just smirked. Well, if you hadn't run off without permission, I wouldn't have had to break the gem, would I? She opened her mouth to argue, but he was already moving on. But then Esseros dropped the truth bomb. You realize you're a daughter of purification, right? You've been scrubbing the bad vibes off this mansion without even trying. She looked totally shook. He broke it down for her with power levels that high. Cleansing the atmosphere wasn't a spell. It was as natural to her as breathing. No wonder she'd been walking around like a zombie ever since she stepped foot in Hasnot. Her battery was draining on autopilot. The spiritual filth in this mansion had been piling up for years, and her passive mana tank wasn't big enough to deep clean it all at once. That blackout she had, a warning shot. Her body was screaming system overload. She looked at Esseros. So should I just bail, leave this place? Not that simple, he countered. This is your turf now. You were born for this. Sienna tried to deny it, but deep down, the connection to Hausmar felt oddly intense. It was like she had lived, breathed, and died within these walls before. Sienna whispered, "Wait, are you actually worried about me?" Esseros closed the distance in a heartbeat. "Obviously. You're the only master I've picked in 2,000 years. Didn't realize I picked a dummy, though. Gotta keep my cute but clueless master from burning out." He grabbed her hand and pressed it firmly against his chest. "Sienna, we're linked. I see what you see, but you're still asleep at the wheel. You haven't fully awakened yet. Listen up, I only level up when you do. Priority 1 is finding me a crib to live in like a pure energy crystal." Before she could even nod, the lights went out in her head. Fade to black. Next thing she knew, morning light was hitting her face and the maids were bustling in. One maid whipped off the duvet, and her eyes bugged out. Then came a scream loud enough to shatter glass. Sienna jolted awake, groggy, but she immediately felt off, physically wrong. She looked at her hands. Why were they so chubby and tiny? Deborah stormed in to scold the screaming maid, then dead stopped. There sat Sienna, shrunk down to toddler size, blinking up with massive doe eyes. Oh my god, the cuteness. It's too much. Deborah went into panic mode, checking her over. Sienna felt fine, but Deborah wasn't taking chances. She bolted to get the Grand Duke and a doctor. Sienna facepalmed with a tiny hand, letting out a heavy sigh. What is happening to me? My bad. That might be on me. Esseros's voice piped up sheepishly. Since his vessel broke, he had latched onto her aura, and apparently that triggered a little physical regression. Sienna saw red. She wanted to squish that troublemaking little flame like a bug. Esseros zoomed to the safety of her head. Find me a new house fast, and you'll grow back, I promise. Roderick burst into the room. He took one look at Mini Sienna, and his jaw practically hit the floor. Report. Now. The doc gave her a once-over. Physically, she's healthy as a horse. But with the contract and all the recent trauma, her mana balance is totally out of whack. Hence, the shrinking. Don't sweat it, the doc added. She'll bounce back to normal in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Sienna slumped. That felt like a lifetime. She started ranting to Roderick, oblivious that her 3-year-old tantrums were just making the maids squeal with delight. Even her voice betrayed her, coming out all sweet, high-pitched, and lisping. Even stone-faced Roderick cracked. He leaned in, fighting the urge to pinch those chubby cheeks. Sienna explained Esseros was the culprit. Then a light bulb went on. The new house he needed, essence gems. Those things were high-octane batteries for magic tools and spellcasting conduits. Super rare, super pricey. But wait, the Gildenack family paid her off with a mine right, a mine full of exactly that stuff. She laid the plan out for Roderick. Roderick nodded, looking serious. Let's discuss this somewhere private. She wobbled out of bed, her clumsy movements triggering another round of awes from the staff. Roderick strode off like a giant. Sienna scrambled behind him, tripping over her oversized hem, huffing and puffing to keep up. The butler actually had to clear his throat before Roderick realized he'd left her in the dust. Sorry, Your Grace. Go ahead, I'll catch up. When he spun around, she flinched, thinking he was annoyed. He bent down to scoop her up, but Deborah swooped in out of nowhere like a hawk. Your Grace, you're busy. Don't worry, I've got the young miss. I'll carry her. She snatched Sienna up, leaving Roderick standing there with empty hands, looking totally awkward. He yanked his hand back stiff as a board and spun around to bolt, leaving Sienna standing there completely confused. Watching the Duke's retreating silhouette, she couldn't shake the vibe that he looked lonely. Maybe turning into a pint-sized kid was messing with her vision. The butler let out a heavy sigh. Even as a dad of 2, watching this train wreck was painful. Seriously, why is the Grand Duke still so clueless when it comes to bonding with kids? Once Sienna dropped the details on Soros's request, Roderick snapped his fingers for a sack overflowing with essential gems. Sienna's jaw basically hit the floor. 1 coin-sized gem alone could cop a mansion downtown. The value of that entire bag, astronomical. Roderick laid it out. You've got shares in the mine now, sure, but the goods aren't ready, so take mine for now. Here's the lore: a soulstone happens when a named entity takes up residence inside a jewel. Basically, that turns the named into a living weapon forged from the soulstone. So, Sorose isn't just after bling. He wants a weapon. Sienna eyed the massive sack of gems, and shyly asked if she could pick just one. Roderick's face instantly shifted. What do you mean one? Sienna blinked, totally confused by his reaction. Then he drops the bomb. The entire bag is hers. Every single gem. Sienna let out a huge breath of relief. He figured she wouldn't need the whole stash for the weapon, so he told her to bank the rest for a rainy day. Sienna was shook by how generous he was being. It made total sense why House Knox had such a legendary rep. Founding family, check. One of the Empire's big 3 guardian clans, you bet. That power runs deep in their bloodline. They were sitting on enough generational wealth to keep their great-great-grandkids living in pure luxury. Roderick even told her to hit up the treasure vault once she was feeling better so she could pick out a relic to embed with those gems. She almost said no out of habit, then she remembered all the purification work she'd been grinding. Yeah, she earned this loot. Plus, a girl needs funds, especially if she plans on going independent later. When she didn't push back, Roderick noticed a shift in her vibe. Usually, she's all gloomy and shadowed. Maybe it was the shrinking spell. Either way, the distance between them felt a lot shorter today. Weekend rolls around and Asiel is back from military school. Again. Roderick thought it was weird his son was home for the 3rd week straight, but let's be real, everyone knew exactly why Asiel kept showing up. The aide helpfully tipped him off. Sienna's probably in the study. Asiel froze and fake coughed to cover his awkwardness. Was he nervous? Hard to say, but he definitely made a beeline for Sienna. Asiel reached the study door, psyching himself up to enter, when a memory hit him that withered rose he'd seen tucked under the desk. A sharp pang of hurt sliced through his chest. Was the flower he gave her still just lying there on the floor? But when he looked, the study was empty. A maid mentioned Sienna had just headed back to her room. That's when Asiel spotted it, a fresh, vibrant bouquet sitting by the window. Oh, those, the maid chirped. The professor sent them to congratulate Miss Sienna on her first manifestation. She actually put those in a vase. The difference in how she treated his gift versus the professor's stung. That night, Asiel drifted into a twisted dream. He was tearing his desk apart, panic rising. Where is it? I have to find it. I put it right here so I could always see it. Where did it go? He was hunting for the amulet Sienna gave him, trashing his entire room, but it was gone. Images of Sienna flashed through his mind, her bright, radiant smile, and then her cold, lifeless body. A crushing weight slammed into his heart, the feeling of losing his absolute world. Asiel jolted awake, emotions spiraling out of control. Tears streamed down his face before he could stop them, hands down the worst nightmare of his life. Why did it hurt so much? Meanwhile, Sienna stared at her reflection. She'd been tiny for days, but it still felt super weird. Deborah was obsessed dressing her up in outfits the young lords wore back in their toddler days. The cuteness was off the charts. Deborah reached out, desperate to scoop Sienna up for a hug. But Sienna was totally over it. The maids were treating her like an actual infant. They even tried to carry her everywhere, just because she tripped in front of Michael yesterday. Remembering his face made her want to crawl into a hole. With her slurpy toddler speech and chubby cheeks, Michael couldn't hold back. He cracked up laughing. She tried to storm off in a rage, wasn't watching her step, and boom, face planted right in front of the whole squad. Total humiliation, but she looked so pitifully cute on the ground that everyone's hearts just melted, even Michael's. He tried to comfort her, telling her to quit crying, and hyped her up as an adorable baby. Meanwhile, Sienna felt like her brain was literally about to self-destruct. Dinner was a struggle. Sienna fought for her life just to speak without slurring, while Michael gave her a thumbs up like she was some gold star toddler. But today, the shock was all on Asiel. It was his first time seeing Sienna in full-on mini mode. She tried to say, "Hi, Asiel," but it came out as Atiel. Michael laughed so hard he was crying, and honestly, she wanted to punch his lights out for the first time ever. Thank the heavens for Roderick. He shut Michael down and told him to focus on his food. A second later, Michael whispered to Sienna, gesturing for her to check something out. The butler. He was wearing those ridiculous shoes. Turns out, when Michael bought those red leather kicks for Sienna, he snagged a goofy pair for the butler too, just for the meme. She never actually thought the stiff, serious butler would have the guts to wear them. The visual was so absurd she just cracked up. Roderick and Asiel were shook. They couldn't believe Michael was the one who finally got a smile out of her. Asiel was dying to know the trick. But Michael just smirked, claiming it was a trade secret he couldn't spill. Asiel stared him down, hoping for a clue, but Michael just shot a look that said, "Sorry, bro, this is between me and Sienna." Asiel was seething with jealousy. With zero outlet for his rage, he took it out on his steak. The aggressive clanking of his silverware was so loud it even startled Sienna. Was this aggressive guy really the gentle lord? Asiel, talk about a character break. Amidst the chaos, Roderick managed to spill his drink all over himself. Michael was the only winner here, hiding his face to muffle his laughter. Sienna had no clue what their deal was, and frankly, she didn't care. She just kept eating. Post-dinner, Roderick announced a banquet in 1 week to officially drop the news of her identity to the world. But Sienna was stressing. Once the secret was out, Lorena would find out. Even though that woman wasn't physically here, her toxic voice still echoed in Sienna's head. Sienna, you don't deserve any of this. In her past life, she was totally under Lorena's thumb. A few sweet lies from that woman had destroyed Sienna's entire existence. Looking back, it was humiliating. In this timeline, she wasn't trusting anyone. 1 week later, the banquet arrived, but there was a glitch. She was still stuck in her tiny body. Showing up like this terrified her. She just knew the guests were going to judge her hard. Seeing her panic, the maids hyped her up, showing off the fan merch they'd made by hand. Miss Sienna, don't stress. Your cuteness is literally a superpower. Sienna was overwhelmed by the love. If anyone messes with you, the Grand Duke will end them. Lord Michael will show the haters who's boss, and Lord Asiel, he'll introduce them to true fear. Inside the massive banquet hall, the vibe was surprisingly chill. People chatting and dancing, not the stiff nightmare Sienna expected. Deborah mentioned the Grand Duke put a ton of effort into this debut, but Sienna couldn't enjoy it. Crowds just weren't her thing. Then Roderick walked in looking sharp. He froze, totally stunned by how put together Sienna looked. You look really cute today. He almost let that slip, but quickly pivoted to, your dress looks beautiful. The butler smirked in the background while Deborah tried to save the awkward moment. Roderick actually blushed, a rare sight. He knelt down, ready to carry her into the hall like royalty. Sienna hopped into his arms without a fuss. It was showtime. Grand Duke Roderick de Nocht and Lady Sienna approaching. All eyes locked onto the Duke and the little girl in his arms. The crowd was buzzing. She's just like the rumors. So young, yet the owner of Azeroth. Truly exceptional. Sienna was sweating bullets, but then Michael stepped up to welcome her. The guests started whispering immediately. Isn't that Lord Michael? He's usually so cold. Why are they so tight? Then Asiel reached out gently, helping her settle into her chair like a perfect gentleman. The way these three powerful men acted made one thing clear. Sienna was the main character of House Noct. Roderick officially introduced her as the adopted daughter of Noct and the chosen heir of Azeroth. The guests were floored, showering the family with praise. But amidst the glitz and glam, Sienna felt uneasy because she knew the truth. Behind those fake smiles were toxic curses, shade, and pure disdain. Just a stray orphan daring to sit on the throne, the absolute lack of shame is wild. Michael snapped the distracted Sienna back to reality, then whisked her away to a secret spot. Her jaw hit the floor at the sight. A literal mountain of presents towered over them. He told her this was standard treatment for a Noct kid gifts from the guests. Pick one, he urged. She hesitated, grabbing the tiniest box in the pile. Michael wasn't having that modest energy. He decided bigger is better, scooping Sienna up and dropping her right into the arms of a humongous teddy bear. Oh my god, Sienna, it's a total vibe. Who sent something with such immaculate taste? Seeing him hype it up, she knew instantly he bought it himself. Then without warning, he locked his fingers with hers. Congrats to our Noct princess. That move triggered major jealousy among the fangirls nearby, while Michael looked way too pleased with himself. But Sienna's gut twisted. She could feel the drama brewing. Cut to the Noct garden. Sienna felt totally out of place watching the cliques form. Deborah had forced her to entertain the guests while the men talked business. As a Noct, she had to show face, but she was basically invisible to these people. She would kill for a pep talk from Azeroth right now. Suddenly, clack. A fan landed right at her feet. Oopsie, my fan dropped. Lady Sienna, fetch that for me, would you? It was Florence, the girl who was seething at Sienna yesterday. She looked aggressive, clearly ready to start beef. Lady Sienna, stay put until we're done talking. You're so rude. The entitlement was real. Sienna remembered how Lorena used to play dirty in her past life, always striking first. She decided to flip the script and use her powers. She didn't move a muscle, just shot a sharp look. The fan on the ground rattled, then launched into the air like a missile straight at Florence. Girl didn't even have time to blink. She slipped and face-planted. Sienna put on her best innocent mask. I helped you pick it up. We good. Florence was fuming. She couldn't believe a nobody orphan just owned her like that. Cue the drama. The older ladies watching stormed over, immediately labeling Sienna as arrogant. You barely joined the Noct family, and you're already bullying the loyal nobility. The disrespect. The Grand Duke is going to be so disappointed. Sienna stayed quiet. She didn't expect the adults to be this petty, too. Surrounded by hate and lies, she knew explaining was pointless. No one had her back. What is going on here? A smooth voice cut through the noise. Enter a white-haired guy. Sienna recognized him instantly. He had helped Lorena before. Viscount Gester. He backed the villainess in her past life. Why is he stepping up now? Viscount Gester cleared the crowd like a pro. Sienna thanked him, and he just scratched his head shyly. You're too kind. Just holler if you need anything, okay? He flashed a warm smile and asked her to hang out, but Sienna's instinct screamed danger. She could practically smell the dark energy on him. Mask off. In a split second, the nice guy act vanished. He pulled a dagger on her. Thunder cracked as rain poured down. Jester kicked open a building door and shoved her inside. Sienna stumbled hard. Her essential jewels spilled out of her pocket and scattered. Panic set in. Azaros hadn't replied all day. Jester grabbed her violently and dragged her toward a small room. Door opens and the smell of rot hits her like a truck. He gave a twisted psycho grin and tossed her into the center of the room. Sienna looked down. A magic circle drawn in fresh blood was glowing on the floor. Jester started caressing a coffin, muttering, "My angel daddy's gonna fix you." The scene was straight up nightmare fuel. Then he dropped his plan. He wanted to drain Sienna's blood, to feed his dead daughter, and transfer her magic. Sienna was stunned mostly by how stupid the plan was. Magic transfer doesn't work like that. If drinking blood was the answer, Lorena wouldn't have waited years to make her move back then. Jester waved the dagger, threatening to end her if she didn't cooperate. Looking at his crazed eyes, she knew cooperating just meant dying slower. Sienna chose violence to survive. She chomped down hard on his hand. Jester shoved her away, screaming, "You stupid brat. You dare bite me. I'm gonna drain every drop you have." It was life or death in Sienna. She channeled Azaros with everything she had. Instantly, boom, furious flames erupted, swallowing Jester in an inferno. The dude was twisting and shrieking in pure agony. Right then, Sienna's body started glitching too. "Blink and you'd miss it," she snapped right back to her original form. Azaros screamed at her to bail. Because Jester was so corrupted by dark energy, he was losing his physical form, straight up turning into a blob monster. Azaros couldn't hold him back much longer, but the exit totally blocked. Sienna whipped her head around to the window behind her. Only one option, jump. With Jester closing in, she was desperately scanning for a way out. "Sienna," a familiar urgent voice cut through the chaos. She glanced out the window. Not far off, someone on horseback with a bow was locked onto her. It was Asiel. Main character vibes activated. A sword wreathed in blue fire sliced the air, barely grazing Sienna and nailing the mutated Jester. But the wound instantly regenerated. The dark energy corruption was too deep. She realized she had to bounce immediately. She checked the window again. Asiel was waiting below. "Sienna, jump. I got you, I promise." She didn't hesitate a second longer. She launched herself off the sill and landed safe and sound in his arms. Asiel was panic asking if she was hurt. Sienna said she was chill. Suddenly, boom, an explosion upstairs. It was Jester. Dark energy had fully consumed him. He was a full-blown monster now. Dozens of mages rushed in to attack, but their spells were doing 0 damage. Azaros dropped the info. The monster's evil aura was leaking out. And basic magic couldn't even scratch the surface. Only the power of the named spirits could take this boss down. Asiel's invisible Thanatos teaming up with Sienna's purifier Azaros. Combined, their powers were the ultimate monster-killing hack. The two forces fused into a blinding beam of light, launching straight at the beast. Finally, the monster vanished into thin air. Victory secured. Asiel and Sienna let out a huge sigh of relief. Back at the mansion, Sienna started replaying the highlights. Jester, Lorena's biggest supporter, was dead. This happened before Lorena even made her move. Was this all just a coincidence? Originally, Lorena's moon cradle was Sienna's crib now. The rose Lorena destroyed in the past life, it belonged to Sienna in this timeline. Even the jewel mine that was supposed to make Lorena rich had become Sienna's property. Even if she wanted to rewrite history, changing things to this level shouldn't be possible. So what the heck was actually going on? Meanwhile, in Derek's office, Devon slapped the investigation report on the desk regarding the kidnapping. Viscount Gester's transformation was off the charts, totally abnormal levels right before he fully turned. If Sienna hadn't lit that purification fire, we're talking a massive war, just to suppress the monsters. Derek was racking his brain. Why was Jester suddenly swamped by evil energy? Devon's intel revealed a preserved body at the scene. Jester's daughter. Someone put a stasis spell on her. Derek theorized Jester was trying to res his daughter and got infected by the dark arts. But Jester had 0 magic skills, so a third party definitely cast that spell. Derek's gut told him something was fishy. According to Sienna, Jester wanted to use her as a sacrifice to bring his kid back. But was that just a hallucination from the dark energy, or was someone actually hunting Sienna for her abilities? Derek ordered Devon to lock down the crime scene and send out the crows. He wanted a deep dive investigation stat. Ever since Sienna's near-death experience during the kidnapping, Azaros had been obsessed with boosting her survival stats. He was prepping some hardcore special training for every emergency scenario. Totally unnecessary. "If I die, just go find another owner," Sienna shrugged. Azaros got super triggered. He flicked her forehead and yelled, "You are the owner I chose. How many times do I have to say it? You treat your life like it's cheap and ignore my feelings completely." Seeing him that hurt, Sienna realized she'd been a total jerk with her words. Azaros doubled down. He wasn't letting anyone else be his master. Suddenly, a memory from her past life flashed through Sienna's mind. She asked Azaros if there was a way to delete a named spirit. "Excuse me." He flared up instantly. "Are you seriously thinking about destroying me?" She quickly waved her hands. "No, that's not it." She finally dropped the truth bomb. She had actually traveled back in time. Hearing the details, Azaros started to piece the puzzle together. Sienna couldn't explain the logic. She told him she wasn't his owner in the last life, and he had been destroyed. He went silent, deep in thought. Wait, are you 100% sure it was destroyed? Or is it possible someone pulled a switcheroo and swiped it? I mean, who even thinks like that? But still, I couldn't wrap my head around why Lorena would pull a stunt like that. She didn't need to lift a finger. The girl was already a 1 in a million mage genius. Lorena was born with this crazy, rare healing ability. She literally extended the dying emperor's life by a whole year, which basically made her an overnight celebrity healer. Maybe she just didn't want you to be my master, so she stole me. Sienna looked totally lost. Could she still claim him after it was taken? When Escharos firmly replied that he'd choose her no matter what, her heart started racing like crazy. Then Escharos got serious. It was time for boot camp. You can't just dodge problems and expect a peaceful life. If you don't want Lorena to crush you again, you gotta level up. He gently tapped her hand. Hey, don't stress. You're not in this alone. Our pact is forever. I've got your back always. Your enemies, they're my enemies now. We're in this together. His sudden sincerity left her speechless. It felt like those words melted the ice around the coldest part of her heart. Years of holding back tears and swallowing insults just poured out. Lorena had dealt her the deepest, nastiest wound of her entire life. She swore she'd never trust anyone again, pushing everyone away, but deep down she was starving for a little warmth and love. I'll always be by your side. That single line gave Sienna a massive power boost. Escharos, I've made up my mind. I'm doing whatever it takes. I'm gonna be the greatest terraformer out there, living in fear like a coward. Yeah, I'm done with that. I don't know how this plays out, but I'm aiming for the very top, and I want to carve your name right there with mine. You the one who picked me no matter what, my ride or die. Escharos, her true partner in crime. Her sudden glow-up even shocked Roderick. He could tell something shifted. When he asked how she was feeling, she beamed, "Thanks to you, I'm doing great." She didn't look away this time, she flashed a dazzling smile. Lord Asiel saved me just in the nick of time. Even though she had been terrified, Roderick pressed for details. The old Sienna would have totally dodged the question. But the new Sienna, she was ready to weaponize everything to get what she wanted. She started acting it out dramatically. The Viscount suddenly held a dagger to my throat, just like this. Roderick looked absolutely shook. I was so scared I wanted help, but nobody came because the other girls kinda hate me. She spilled the tea on all the bullying. Roderick was seeing red. He had no idea it was that bad. What was Deborah doing? I sent her to watch over you. Sienna put on a sad face. Oh, she was too busy networking to notice me, even when I had a knife to my throat. She totally ghosted me. Roderick was heartbroken. How dare they defy my orders and disrespect you like that? This is unforgivable. He immediately ordered Viscount Gaster and Deborah to be stripped of their titles and their families banished. He seized all their assets, too. Anyone who had ever bullied Sienna was permanently blacklisted from the estate. Roderick was the ultimate power player. Nobody dared to cross him. From that moment on, those families were social poison. Soon the noble gossip mill was running wild. Everyone realized Roderick was obsessed with Sienna, but they also had to respect his eye for talent. That adopted orphan girl wasn't just a placeholder. She was a legit terraformer. Some were even thinking about adopting orphans themselves to test their luck. A few days later, Escharos officially kicked off Sienna's special training. She'd already been grinding on her magic skills with him. Now it was time to show off the results. She closed her eyes, feeling the raw magic swirling around her heart's core. Energy slowly gathered in her palm, condensing into a shimmering magical domain. This was Genesis, her first glimpse of creation. The embryonic form of a vast new world, molded by her own magic. Escharos looked super pleased. You really are worthy of being the master I fought so hard to choose. With my brilliant coaching, you're gonna be legendary. Then he immediately bugged her to get him a house, as soon as possible. She pointed out she already gave him those essential gems. Escharos looked at the rough stones like they were trash. But Sienna told him to just deal with it. He looked stunned, then totally depressed, floating into the closet to sulk in peace. Sienna quickly apologized with a grin. Escharos, my bad, I was just messing with you. Earlier, Roderick had asked if she wanted anything. To cheer Escharos up, she decided to cash in that favor and ask for access to the treasury. Roderick was feeling generous, letting her grab whatever she wanted. Escharos immediately popped his little head out when he heard that. Let's hit the treasury right now. The place was stacked with an insane collection of loot. We're talking insane loot, heirlooms from the golden days, and ancient relics, so mysterious nobody even knows what they're actually for. Michael tried to vibe check the situation, telling Sienna to chill, relax. We already swept the place for death traps once, so this time shouldn't be too lethal. Sienna raised an eyebrow. Hold up, are you saying there's still dangerous stuff in there? Bingo. Might even be some nightmare fuel monsters left. Roderick had to physically restrain Mako, who was wildly gesturing like a hype man in the background. Roderick was confused, since when were these two besties? Mako, on the other hand, was living for the validation. After all, he was basically the person in the house with the strongest connection to Sienna. But Sienna, she was totally zoning out. She couldn't help but wonder. Without all the toxic drama of her past life, would Mako have always been this sweet to her? The treasure room was locked down tight with blood magic. Only true members of House Noct, or someone who'd snacked on a magic pomegranate, could get past the velvet rope. The room had a mind of its own, guiding people to exactly what they needed. The catch: it was a solo mission, one player at a time. David reassured her, "Don't sweat it. The treasure room never hurts anyone the Noct family claims as their own." Stealing her nerves, Sienna promised to come back in one piece. Then she stepped alone into the pitch-black void. Total darkness, the only thing visible, a trail of glowing footprints on the floor, lighting up like a runway guiding her forward. Azaros whispered a warning to stay sharp, but honestly, Sienna wasn't sensing any red flags. Suddenly she froze. She was standing right in front of Asiel's bedroom door. Wait, what? This made zero sense. Wasn't she just in the treasure vault? How did she glitch into the bedroom? She called out to Azaros. Dead silence. The glowing footprints led straight inside. Figuring Asiel was miles away at military school, she decided to barge in. But surprise, Asiel was standing right there. Sensing a presence, he slowly turned around to face the intruder. His face was twisted in pure agony and disbelief. He looked at her like she was a ghost, like he was trapped in a fever dream. Sienna was totally thrown off. Asiel was supposed to be at the academy, and something about his vibe was just wrong. Then a familiar chill hit her. This wasn't the current Asiel. This was the broken Asiel from her past life. Watching him stumble toward her, instinct took over. She spun around and bolted. She had to get out of there, but Asiel was right on her heels, his voice cracking with intense pain. "Sienna, wait," no matter how much he begged. She didn't stop. Panic mode fully engaged, she kept telling herself this wasn't real. It had to be a hallucination. A trick of the treasure room. The Grand Duke did say the room gives visitors what they truly desire. But Sienna refused to accept that. There was no way, no freaking way, that deep down, she actually wanted Asiel to be this desperate for her. She scrambled through a doorway and slammed it shut. From the other side, his voice broke into a beg. "Sienna, please, don't leave me." She slumped against the door, gasping for air. That's when reality snapped back, and she heard Azaros's voice. She blinked. She was in a totally new spot. Azaros told her she'd just blacked out the moment they walked in. Like she got hit with a heavy illusion spell. Hearing that calmed her down. Okay, so, the whole nightmare chase scene, just a bad dream. Suddenly, clink. Something rolled right up to her sneakers. It was this super vintage cigarette holder. Azaros immediately started inspecting it. "Sienna dibs. I want this as my new condo," Azaros chirped. "It's got fireproofing and a magic amplification buff, plus a jewel slot for me to crash in. It's like they custom made it for your boy." It was definitely love at first sight for the spirit. Sienna wasn't feeling it. A young girl carrying a cigarette holder. Not the vibe. "I don't care. I need it. If I don't get it, I'll literally perish," Azaros whined. "Didn't you say I could pick my prize? Besides, the room picks what suits you best, right? So obviously this fancy stick is the ultimate choice." Sienna rolled her eyes but caved. She took out an essence jewel and slotted it into the mouthpiece. Bam! A blinding flash of light, and the jewel fused perfectly with the holder, like they were always meant to be one. Time for a test run. Sienna channeled some magic, summoning fierce flames. The smoke that drifted out actually purified the air around them. Then thud. Another item dropped at her feet, a heavy signet ring. Azaros felt a weirdly strong pull toward the ring's aura. It was basically screaming, "Take me," so she grabbed it. When she finally stepped out of the treasure room, Roderick and Mako were camping at the entrance. They looked shocked. You were only in there for 10 minutes. But to Sienna, it felt like she'd been gone for ages. She figured the magic inside must have warped the timeline. Everyone was shook. When she revealed her loot, a cigarette holder, she quickly clarified, "Don't look at me, Azaros is obsessed with it." Michael smirked. Well, Azaros has unique taste. Azaros did not appreciate the shade. The audacity. How dare this smelly brat judge my style? Sienna roast him for me. But the group just ignored the angry spirit and kept chatting away happily. Azaros was left behind stewing in his own toxic rage. Cut to a few days later, class is dismissed. Sienna barely lets the bell ring before firing off a question, leaving Michael shook by her academic hustle. Do you ever take a break? Is studying really that deep? Absolutely. The more I learn, the more power I unlock. Every page she turned was a reminder of what they stole from her, not just her magic, but her joy, and every opportunity she ever had. In her past life, the moment she manifested her own domain, she had dived headfirst into a technicolor dreamscape, watching it bloom bit by bit, nurturing a world that was hers and hers alone. It was pure serotonin. That vibrant realm, shimmering with starlight, recharged her soul every single day. Jump to the present. Sienna returns to the orphanage. The second her feet hit the dirt, she's launching herself into teacher Lisa's arms. Lisa froze, eyes wide. The girl in front of her was unrecognizable compared to the ragged kid she used to know. Michael stepped out behind her. Lisa, beaming, asked how she'd been. "I'm doing great," Sienna chirped. Everyone treats me like gold. Well, internally, she added, until Lorena showed up. Out loud, she pointed out the upgrades to the building. No more leaky windows and, wow, it's actually clean in here. Since Lisa took the reins as director, the place had leveled up big time. But looking around, Michael couldn't believe this was considered an improvement. Shattered glass, rotting walls, and moldy stairs that screamed in agony with every step. Even for VIP guests, the tea was basically grain water, and the cookies were these rock-hard black lumps made of mystery ingredients. Back at Nacht, the servants wouldn't even feed this to the dogs. If this is better, what kind of hell was it before? Lisa shuddered, remembering the dark days under the old director. That guy was so cheap he wouldn't even toss onion peels. He'd boil them into a sad excuse for soup for the kids. Zero seasoning, just hot, flavorless garbage water. At least now the kids are getting actual meals and aren't starving. Sometimes Lisa baked cookies, Sienna's childhood obsession. Back then, those treats were forbidden fruit, reserved only for the director and guests. Michael stared at the burnt snacks. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that these concrete discs were Sienna's dream dessert. Watching her smile like she'd won the lottery broke him. The more he heard, the sicker he felt. He couldn't even fathom the nightmare she'd survived. Guilt was eating Lisa alive for not protecting Sienna back then, confessing that if Sienna were still there, she'd treat her like a princess, no more suffering. Sienna smiled softly, admitting that living there under Lisa's care would honestly make her happy. That triggered Michael. He snapped, yelling, "Sienna, you're a Nacht now. You are never coming back here." Sienna flinched, totally blindsided by his intensity. Lisa quickly apologized. "My bad, Lord Michael. Of course she belongs at Nacht." Michael instantly regretted his outburst. He'd toured commoner districts before, and thought he knew how the other half lived. But today was a reality check. He finally saw just how brutal life was at rock bottom. Realizing Sienna grew up in this filth, and probably faced even worse, horrors hit him hard. Lisa mentioned the donations were pouring in from nobles ever since Sienna's public debut. Adopting orphans had become the new trendy accessory for the aristocracy, even if their motives were totally sketchy. Some dropped cash, just out of pity for the squalor. But soon it was time to bounce. Sienna said goodbye to Lisa, clearly dragging her feet. Michael had never seen her this chill. At the mansion, she was always guarded, acting like a temporary guest. She probably thought that if a better orphan showed up, she'd be shipped right back here. He just couldn't process why she'd actually missed this dump. On the ride home, Sienna was still glowing from the reunion. Meanwhile, Michael was spiraling. Sienna mentioned visiting again, and it was eating him up inside. What if she goes back too often and decides to stay? Panic set in. "Sienna," he said coldly, "you are not going back to that orphanage." Sienna looked at him like he had two heads. He was being ridiculous. First, he invites himself along, then he interrupts her talk with Lisa, and now he's banning her from returning. "I got the Grand Duke's permission on day one, remember?" she argued. Michael's anxiety spiked. "So you were plotting to go back this whole time?" "Yeah, obviously. It's my home." Neither of them could get on the other's wavelength, and the carriage erupted into an argument. Michael couldn't grasp why she was so desperate to return to that hellhole. Did she hate them that much? It didn't make sense. She was still blood of the Nacht family, and she owned it. Sienna whipped around, giving him the ultimate cold shoulder and refusing to even glance his way. He knew she'd already tuned him out. Realizing it was a lost cause, he just shut his mouth and let the silence take over. Fast forward a few days. Lisa was deep in the weeds in the garden when she spotted a familiar silhouette. Sienna was back. Lisa looked low-key stressed, asking, "Is it really safe for you to pull up this often?" But Sienna just flashed a cheeky grin. "Why am I annoying you?" "No way," Lisa laughed. "Honestly, keep coming. Maybe those stingy nobles will finally drop some real cash just to impress you." Sienna cracked up at the hustle, but the vibe shifted instantly when Lisa asked, "Did Mako tag along?" Sienna froze. Total radio silence since their fight. The old Sienna would have been terrified of his temper and ghosted the orphanage, but the new Sienna, she literally couldn't care less. It was basically a countdown to disaster. Once Lorena showed up or he started spiraling about her vibe with Asiel, that flimsy friendship was going to shatter into a million pieces regardless. So she dropped the excuse on Lisa, insisting that Mako was way too tied up to make an appearance. Just then, a voice ripped through the silence, frantically shouting for Miss Lisa. That little menace from room 6 had gone rogue again, sneaking straight into the restricted back room like a ghost. Lisa told Sienna to sit tight in the director's office for a hot second. But the moment Sienna stepped inside, the vibe shifted. She spotted something totally out of place. A scrap of fabric was snagged underneath the closet door. It was shut tight, but that tiny piece of cloth was a dead giveaway that someone was hiding inside. He clocked the kid cowering inside the closet. Taunting the door, he sneered, "If I were you, I'd make sure I vanished without leaving a single trace." Using the back room as a decoy, gotta admit, that's a high IQ play. Suddenly, the tension spikes as the closet door slowly creaks open. Crouched in the shadows was a tiny boy, jet black hair, piercing blue eyes. He shot her a glare full of suspicion, demanding to know exactly who she was. Sienna flashed a warm smile. Just someone who got sold to this place way before you. He kept his guard up, but Sienna wasn't fazed. She knew exactly how to handle kids like him. She reached out a hand. You planning to hide there forever? Meanwhile, Lisa had been tearing the back room apart, finding absolutely zero trace of the kid. When she dragged herself back, totally wiped, she froze. There was Lou, the runaway she'd been hunting for, fast asleep, right in Sienna's lap. Lisa stared at the scene, defeated. She explained Lou was a transfer from another orphanage and had been fighting this place with every ounce of his strength. He refused to lower his defenses, asking, "You aren't lying, right?" Sienna turned to comfort Lisa, assuring her everything was under control. She claimed she'd talked some sense into him, and he'd behave now. But the second Sienna tried to bounce, Lou latched onto her like a lifeline, begging her not to leave. Lisa tried to pry him off, but the kid wouldn't let go. Finally, Sienna leaned in and whispered a secret in his ear. Lou's eyes snapped to hers instantly. "You aren't lying, right? Then let's make a promise." Sienna beamed. "You got it, but you gotta keep your word, too." She walked away. A baffled Lisa asked what magic words she used since the kid never listened to anyone. "Just told him I'd be back." Before she could explain the promise, Lou suddenly popped up behind Lisa, bowing like a perfect gentleman. He apologized and owned up to every single prank he'd pulled, all because of that pinky swear with Sienna. The deal was simple: behave and confess, and she'd come back to play. Later, back at the house, Sienna gazed out the window, totally zoned out. According to the timeline from her previous life, she'd already survived 1 month here. 4 months left until Lorena makes her entrance. Even though the script had flipped, Sienna couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at her. The dread was eating her alive. She'd hustled nonstop to rewrite the script of her life, but now she was terrified. Would all that blood, sweat, and tears just be canceled the moment Lorena stepped on the scene? Originally, she thought her luck was turning around, but that nasty clash with Mako was a total reality check. It hit her hard. Relying on other people's goodwill was a trap. It's fleeting and fake. She needed cold, hard stats and real wins to survive Lorena's upcoming debut. Then it clicked: the Emperor's mysterious illness. In the previous timeline, the Emperor went from healthy to death's door overnight. Lorena swooped in, bought him 1 extra year of life, and snagged the title Angel of Healing. Even after the Emperor passed, Lorena secured a spot right next to the Crown Prince at the funeral, cementing her status as a VIP. Sienna's mind started racing. Imagine the clout if I was the one to cure the Emperor. Aceros was all for it, hyping her up. Healing and purification, basically the same skill tree, he argued. So you've got this. Sienna remembered how that one move won Lorena the public's heart and the royal family's favor. But looking back, the math wasn't mathing. How does an emperor, fit as a fiddle, suddenly drop into critical condition? And how did Lorena just happen to have the perfect cure ready to go? That's not luck. That smells like a setup, a total conspiracy. Aceros put on his detective hat. If that's the theory, we gotta verify if the Emperor is actually sick first. If this really is Lorena's master plan, she's probably already making moves to shadowban Sienna. Lorena is desperate for a massive achievement to rival the owner of the named. Meanwhile, Bradley got hit with some breaking news. The Empire had found someone wielding healing magic, a power that's been extinct for ages. And guess who? Lady Lorena of House Menenchi. Lorena had officially rebranded as a healer mage. The news went viral instantly and people started comparing her to Sienna. Is House Menenchi pushing this narrative because they're threatened by Sienna, the name's owner? Wait, why would a high-tier noble like Lady Lorena even sweat a random orphan? The disrespect fired Aceros up. He told Sienna to start grinding healing spells as soon as possible. They couldn't take an L to that toxic girl. But dual-wielding 2 magic types, that hasn't happened in this world in forever. Sienna decided to stay in her lane. Instead of wasting time, she'd max out her purification stats and level up as a terraformer. She knew Lorena's healing had a massive nerf. It only worked on 1 person at a time. Lorena treated her mana like gold, only using it when absolutely necessary. In the past life, nobles would line up begging for cures, but Lorena would hit them with the "so sorry, saving the Emperor drained me," and just dip, leaving them hanging. She'd walk away while they stood there disappointed. Sienna, unfortunately, was the one who got cornered by those rejected nobles. They demanded she force Lorena to help them. Back then, Sienna actually felt bad for Lorena and shut down their entitled demands. But playing bodyguard backfired. You're just an orphan. Who gave you the audacity to say no? You hang around Lady Lorena and think you're somebody disrespecting us? Have you forgotten your place? They literally beat her down. If she unlocked healing now, she'd just be inviting that same crowd of leeches. She didn't want the drama or the danger just for some status. She told Aceros, "Just being your owner is enough for me." That hit him right in the feels. "Forget the healing spells," he said. "You're already the main character to me." Still, Sienna couldn't shake the Emperor problem. If his sickness is a plot, she needs to patch the glitch before he actually gets ill. But How does one just slide into the Emperor's DMs? Aceros watched her spiral, thinking she was stressing over nothing. Before she could scheme a plan, Radric dropped a bomb. The Emperor had been trying to link up with her for a while. She'd unintentionally ghosted 2 invites, but she couldn't dodge this one. Sienna facepalmed. Getting summoned by the king was actually super common. For the owner of the named, she was stressing about access when the guy was literally chasing her. She felt so dumb. She immediately hyped herself up for the meeting. But Radric, he looked super tense. He told Sienna, "Don't force it. If she didn't want to go, she could bail." However, Sienna wasn't about to fumble this bag. She quickly declared that as a loyal subject meeting, His Majesty was a huge honor. Radric's expression went dark. It looked like he was terrified she might cause a scene in front of the throne. She swore she'd crush her etiquette studies and keep the family reputation spotless. But Radric, his face totally darkened. The guy realized his subtle hint had flown right over her head, so he had zero choice but to cave. "Since you're so desperate to go," he sighed, "I'll reply to His Majesty." Watching her get all hyped, Aceros cracked up. His master was honestly so adorably clueless it hurt. The Grand Duke clearly wanted to gatekeep her from the palace, but she completely missed the memo. Meanwhile, over in the royal gardens, the Emperor was just vibing, admiring the scenery. Duke Urias rolled up to pay his respects. The Emperor waved a hand dismissively, basically telling him to drop his news and bounce. Urias handed over a response letter from Radric, but the Emperor tossed it aside without even breaking the seal. Total power move. Duke Urias bowed out, not even flinching at the Emperor's cold shoulder. But the second the door clicked shut, the Emperor scrambled for that letter. The man was practically fanboying as he tore into it. He was dying to meet this kid. Later at school time, Sienna hovered nervously outside the classroom door. Since her blowout with Michael, the other day they'd been ghosting each other, but she wasn't about to skip class just to avoid the awkwardness. "You not going in? What are you doing here?" Suddenly Michael appeared right behind her. His face was a mask of calm, but his eyes were glued to her feet. Sienna looked down. She was rocking the red leather shoes he'd gifted her. Her maid had styled the outfit, but wearing his gift while they were currently beefing felt super embarrassing. "Guess you really dig those shoes." Sienna quickly lied, claiming they just matched her fit for the day. Michael didn't push it and walked her into the room. He was just hoping Sienna would finally realize what was actually good for her. Throughout the lecture, he kept side-eyeing her, making Sienna sweat. Was he still salty or what? Today's lesson was deep diving into malignant energy, basically dark power fueled by human malice, sin, or straight-up injustice. Viscount Gester and Isabel were textbook examples. Since humans naturally have some darkness, spotting this evil energy before symptoms show is nearly impossible. But Sienna, she had seen the dark aura clinging to Gester clearly, and the shadows in Isabel's eyes. When she mentioned this to Aceros before, he explained that since he's not human and can sense evil vibes naturally, Sienna, as his master, shared that passive buff. Plus, that skill was going to be a game changer for her tamer career. Aceros warned her to keep it on the down low though, because flashing OP abilities usually triggers major jealousy while only helping yourself. Aceros then broke down the 4 demon tiers. A common demon is basically a zombie lost its mind, runs on instinct, just wants to eat flesh, like Viscount Gester. Then you got demons that can recognize their own kind and squad up. That's level 3, the rare tier. Unique demons can mimic human behavior pretty well and sling dark magic. And for the ones that transcend ordinary human limits, that's the epic tier boss level threats. Sienna and Michael both stiffened up hearing that. Before wrapping up, Aceros dropped a homework assignment: research famous incidents involving each demon class. Michael asked Sienna what her move was for the day. She didn't try to dodge him straight up, saying she was hitting the orphanage. Michael just told her to stay safe on the road and suggested they crush the homework together later. When she got back, his chill reaction totally threw her off. She was shocked he wasn't pressing her about it. Sienna pulled up to the orphanage with a heavy escort, 2 guards Radric assigned. Inside, Lisa was watching over a chaotic group of kids. The second those kids spotted Sienna, they swarmed her like paparazzi, screaming for the teacher of Hall 6. The scene turned into a mosh pit, so Lisa had to herd the little ones off to get washed up. The guards stepped back respectfully to give them space. Sienna was terrified the teacher would roast her for bringing a whole security detail, but Lisa was actually beaming. It proved the Grand Duke seriously valued Sienna. Plus, thanks to her regular visits, donations from the nobility had skyrocketed. Sure, most of them were just chasing clout, but that cash was legitimately upgrading the orphanage. The staff and kids were incredibly grateful to Sienna. Ever since Lisa dropped that Teacher of Hall 6 title, it had gone viral among the kids. Even Lula was using it. Sienna was super sweet with the little ones, always down to play, which made her a total favorite. Suddenly, Lou spawned out of nowhere, nearly giving Lisa a heart attack. Turns out another teacher needed backup. After Lisa hurried off, Lou turned his attention to Sienna. She decided to hang back with Sienna, pulling out the book Sienna had loaned her during their last meetup. They dove straight into breaking down the plot. Sienna was honestly shook. This kid's vocabulary was next level, and she noticed his whole vibe was completely different from the other orphans. You actually listening to Miss Lisa's lectures? I mean, I try to pay attention. If Miss Lisa didn't sound like a broken record just yapping blah blah at me, maybe I'd actually act right. The second she stepped out of the orphanage, Sienna's gut instinct screamed danger. The forest was dead silent. No wind, no birds, nothing. And the carriage that was supposed to be her ride, gone. She realized they must have walked straight into a magic barrier, but she didn't sense any killing intent, meaning whoever set this trap wasn't trying to hurt them. Suddenly, footsteps echoed nearby. The guards immediately went into defense mode to shield Sienna, but in a split second both guards just glitched out of existence. Then a massive ornate door materialized right in front of her eyes. Saros whispered in her ear to chill. There was no threat here. Sienna also felt a powerful, welcoming aura inviting her in. She stepped through the gateway instantly, surrounded by lush, fresh greenery that literally moved its vines aside to pave a path for her. In the center of the garden stood an old man. "You're right on time, kid." She instantly recognized him. It was the Emperor. "Relax, I'm just a passing old traveler." Seeing the Emperor acting so chill, she dropped her guard. "I heard a kind-hearted genius became the name-bearer, so I had to see this for myself." Suddenly, heavy footsteps crashed through the bushes. It was Roderick. Looking totally done with everything, he called out the Emperor for pulling such a prank. "You hid the kid just because I wouldn't let you visit. So you hijacked her path to your garden, didn't you, uncle?" That's when Sienna finally connected the dots. The Emperor was the Grand Duke's uncle. At that moment, Saros told her to take a closer look at the ruler. She steadied herself, focusing her spirit vision on his eyes. Suddenly she gasped, spotting something terrifying inside the Emperor. Sienna was absolutely horrified to see that his heart was completely saturated with dark, malignant corruption. The bad vibes inside Isabel were a joke compared to the monster living inside the Emperor. That level of toxicity was enough to turn a human into a full-blown demon. With that much dark energy, if it detonated, the Emperor was a dead man walking, and if he just died, that would be the best-case scenario. But if that massive cloud of corruption hit a mana flow and exploded, it would be game over. We're talking an invasion of rare-level demons, maybe even triggering an instant war and a total catastrophe for the people. That specific level of corruption didn't happen naturally. Someone manufactured this. Sienna's mind went straight to Lorena. What kind of twisted dark arts did she use to contaminate the Emperor like this? Since coming back to life, Sienna had been watching the Grand Duke, and everyone else hoping maybe this timeline's Lorena was different. But this proved Lorena hadn't changed a bit. She wasn't just scamming Sienna or sacrificing the Emperor. It was way worse. She was playing the entire empire. Sienna was shaking with rage. She was done playing nice. She was going to burn Lorena's plot to the ground. She figured the Emperor had to know he was cooked. After all, the imperial family was the strongest line of terraformers on the planet. Plus, this whole garden was his domain. He was using the garden's purification power to suppress the corruption as long as he could. Only terraformers could actually purge that energy, meaning Lorena's so-called healing powers were just a band-aid that might buy him one extra year. Sienna hatched a plan. She wanted to team up with Saros to actually cure the Emperor, but making that move meant she was no longer just a bystander. She was declaring open war on Lorena. The Emperor invited Sienna to try some sweets. You'd expect imperial desserts to be way better than the stuff at home. But nah, she'd only seen these in the flex packages the palace sent to Lorena. In her past life, Lorena used to share the royal bounty with her noble clique to show off. Thinking back on it, it was totally just a power move to flaunt her special status with the royals. She grabbed a slice of cake and took a bite. The flavor, honestly, kind of mid. It seemed like the only thing people cared about was the brand name attached to it. Still, her perfect manners made the Emperor adore her. He couldn't wrap his head around how a grump like Roderick snagged such a cute kid. He offered his arm to take Sienna for a stroll around the garden. Sienna was absolutely buzzing. This was her golden ticket to chat up the Emperor. Sure, ditching the Grand Duke felt a little sketch and maybe against protocol, but Roderick gave her the green light. Go for it, he insisted. He's a legendary terraformer. You'll learn a ton. As they strolled down the forest path, the Emperor broke the ice. Did I freak you out earlier with my dramatic entrance? My bad, honestly. It's just a terraformer thing. People flock to us like moths to a flame, he explained. We scrub the bad vibes out of the air. Everyone feels instantly recharged when they're near us. Click! Suddenly, all that random kindness made sense. Sienna nodded. So I'm a terraformer just like you, Your Majesty. The vibe shifted instantly. His warm eyes went cold and sharp. Hold up. When exactly did I tell you who I was, Sienna? Sienna froze, ice in her veins. In this timeline, she had never met the Emperor before. Major slip-up. Her brain scrambled for an excuse. How did I know? Well, only one person could talk down to the Grand Duke like that, and that's the Emperor. Boom. Saved it. His suspicion evaporated, and they ventured deeper into the woods. But forget about a magical fairy forest. The scenery took a dark turn. Just dead silence and overgrown weeds. This wasn't nature. It was the Emperor's mental state manifested. A physical projection of his mind. The Emperor stared at the dying plants, his expression grim. The land is rotting because I am. You think I'm sick too, don't you? Sienna didn't flinch. Yes, there's a shadow on your heart. The Emperor gasped. Kid. You can actually see that Radric rushed over at the outburst. Sienna explained that thanks to her link with Aceros, she had X-ray vision for cursed energy. Now it made sense why she saw the darkness inside him. Under Radric's panicked questioning, the Emperor dropped the act. Look, I'm running out of time. Radric looked like he'd seen a ghost. Why? Radric stammered repeatedly. The Emperor sighed. I blacked out in the middle of a meeting recently. I know I'm old, but I've always been built like an ox. It shouldn't have happened. Chaos erupted. And the Crown Prince, he coldly told me to draft my obituary if I was planning to kick the bucket. Talk about harsh. But when he woke up from his mini coma, he felt fine. Even the royal doctor gave him a clean bill of health. He thought he dodged a bullet. And he felt it, a massive toxic buildup of dark energy. It was festering inside him. He'd kept it on the down low, telling only the prince. Radric stared heartbroken. But the Emperor just smirked. Hey, make sure you bring a fat envelope of cash to my funeral, okay? Radric was losing his mind with worry. As the two men bickered, Sienna cut in. Is the curse making you sick? The Emperor blinked suddenly, remembering the kid was still there. Shh, he whispered, pressing a finger to his lips. Keep this between us. Top secret. Sienna stood her ground. I can purge that energy for you. The Emperor smiled, amused but sad. He knew he was too far gone for a rookie to fix, but Sienna was staring at the sheer scale of the corruption. It was a ticking time bomb. If that much dark mana exploded, it would spawn a literal army of demons. That's why he was quarantining himself here, to protect his people from the fallout. The Emperor's eyes widened. She actually got it. Exactly, he said, voice heavy. Isolation keeps the blast radius small. Then he whipped around to face Radric. Radric, you liar. You told me she was just clever. You dare play games with your Emperor. Clever doesn't even cut it. She's a prodigy. Were you trying to keep her talent a secret or something? Radric stood there, jaw on the floor, totally roasted. He stammered an apology, swearing to hype Sienna up as the genius of the century from now on. Aceros chimed in. Well, obviously. I picked her. Sienna just stood there, looking terrified by the sudden praise. The Emperor leaned in close. Let me see this spirit of yours. Sienna hesitantly pulled out Aceros' physical vessel. He squinted at the object. I heard spirit shift forms. Is this a wand? It's definitely unique. But the longer he stared, the weirder it got. Wait a minute. Is that a cigarette holder? You're holding a smoking pipe. Please tell me you didn't pick this design yourself. Sienna started sweating, ready to deny everything. Aceros actually pulled it off. The Emperor lets out a heavy sigh, tension finally leaving his body. Thank God his taste is impeccable, he knew. Trusting his gut was the right move. He flashes a charming grin at Sienna. It's a total honor to meet Aceros, and the one holding the leash. He mentions their names sound super mysterious, like they popped out of nowhere. You've managed to tame the most famous, overpowered Aceros in the game. Meanwhile, Roderick is working hard to convince the Emperor to roll with Sienna's plan. She is confident she can cure him, but the Emperor freezes. He hesitates for a second, admitting he can't give them a green light just yet. He drops a bombshell. Someone else beat them to it. Another kid stepped up, claiming to have the cure, and that person is Lady Lorena. She just unlocked her powers as a healer mage, and she is not making this easy for anyone.